Warrior Lore. Chapter 311. You understand my ass. Chapter 311. You understand my ass. Editor. At the foot of the sacred light mountain, the seawater was ultramarine. The afterglow was of a mesmerizingly blazing red hue. Clouds were pink, and the sea was blue. Many groups of clouds were floating around. The scene here was originally peaceful and relaxing. However, the two aggressive young men who were fighting had already destroyed this beautiful scene. At this time, in the oval-shaped bathing area, the rubble of stones was scattering everywhere in the air. The ground had been indented, forming many deep craters. After an earth-piercing explosive sound, the ground was split open, creating a bottomless crater. The seawater immediately flooded into that crater, which was like 1,000 of zhang deep abyss. The two tremendous conflicting powers had made the sea water rise, as if it wanted to drown both the sky and the earth. Inside the bathing area, the wreckages of the taverns were littered everywhere. Many pots and pans were floating on the water. Some food was also bobbing up and down on the water. The natural bathing area had become a garbage dump and didn't retain any of its former elegance. Everything had been caused by the two people who were fighting inside that gaping crater. Boom! A sound like the rolling thunders came up from inside the crater. The entire bathing area was vibrating. Inside that crater, countless energetic seals condensed all together in the middle of the dazzling lights. 7 big, energetic seals merged into one, which was like a giant hand of an angel bringing along the earth-destructive aura, dashing toward Mangu. Mangu was struck out of the crater. In the middle of the splattering shower, Mangu's face was pale, and the muscles on his sturdy body was convulsing non-stop. His horrendous strength was still there, but it seemed that Mangu wasn't able to use his strength anymore. Under the attack of the energetic seals, Mangu was then struck up to hundreds of zhang and continued getting slammed and pinned by a huge flow of water. The Mangu's buffalo-like body was now like a small boat in the torrent, which was clearly about to capsize. In the middle of the full force of the barraging water, his strength seemed to be in the state of, the spirit is willing but the flesh is weak. The talented seed of the uncultivated barbarian sect, the young man who was ranked at number 2 in the power rankings, at this moment, seemed to lose. Many people in the trading area didn't believe in their own eyes. In the middle of the buzzing discussions, from a corner where nobody had paid attention to, a graceful shout suddenly came up, "Enough!" Chao Zhilan, who had disappeared for long, abruptly emerged. Her body was covered with a layer of splendid lights as she was walking on the surface of the water, approaching Mangu. No one knew that she had been hiding in the lake all that time. When the two men had been fighting, as she had disappeared without a trace, people had thought that she had soon left already. It was unexpected that when the fight was coming to an end, she had now reappeared all of a sudden. It seemed that she had been coldly watching the violent fight between the two men in the dark and laughing to herself. Perhaps the fact that being bluntly refused by Shi Yin had irritated her so much that she, from the beginning until now, hadn't shown up to prevent the fight nor asked Mangu to stop. Many people knew that Mangu of the uncultivated barbarian sect seemed to have listened only to her. However, why she hadn't stopped him was unknown. It was unknown either she wanted to ridicule Shi Yin or to let Mangu know how dangerous Shi Yin was that she had just quietly been hiding during that time. Nobody knew her real intentions. However, at this critical point of time, she finally showed up. As soon as she appeared, she slenderly leaped up like a phoenix. Warrior Lord, the brilliant lights were moving around, covering her entire body. Chao Zhilan's body, which was like a rainbow, moved toward Mangu. After that, when she lifted her jade-like hand up, magnificent lights in the sky suddenly intertwined, forming a silver net which tied up Mangu just in a blink. One of her hands held the silver net while her other hand, relying on the torrent, pulled Mangu up and then landed on the ground. "Let go of me. I want to kill him." Being tied up inside the silver net, Mangu was struggling and angrily screaming. A murderous aura suddenly struck people's faces. At this time, it seemed that Mangu's strength was still as violent as before. Thus, he still wanted to risk his life in fighting Shi Yin. knocking Shi Yin out right in front of Chao Jilan. You should calm down. Chao Jilan knitted her eyebrows and then threw him a jade vase. Take the pellet inside the vase quickly. Your body is severely injured. You don't have the immortal martial spirit as he does. If you continue to fight, you will definitely die. I don't care. Mangu screamed out loud. His face was vivid red. I certainly can kill him. Let me go. I want to kill him. Mangu's scream was still powerful as usual, but when the people heard it, it somehow expressed his helplessness. Stupid buffalo. Chao Jilan cursed him under her breath before using her jade-like hand to pat on the back of Mangu's head strongly. A dark blue octopus suddenly appeared on the back of his head. Its tentacles quickly held Mangu's head, and black streams of power ran out from those tentacles, absorbing into Mangu's brain. The haughtiness in Mangu's eyes gradually vanished. He felt that his eyelids became so heavy that he couldn't open his eyes anymore. When he closed his eyes, his body finally relaxed, and his stiffened muscles loosened. Streams of red blood gradually gushed out from the muscles on his body. After a short while, Mangu's body was full of blood. It turned out that Mangu's body had soon torn down. However, when the muscles had stiffened, those injuries had been suppressed. Even a drop of blood couldn't have spewed out because his skin and flesh were too solid. However, at this moment, when his spirit had relaxed, and the muscles on his body were no longer tense, those injuries then surfaced. Chao Jilan's eyes flared up a beam of remorse. She secretly released a sigh. After that, she quickly sat down, taking out many vases and jars, then applied the medicinal powder on Mangu's body. In front of many people, Shi Yan's blunt refusal had made an arrogant person like her too resentful. Therefore, a person who was always calm like her hadn't been able to be discerning anymore. Having seen Mangu challenge Shi Yan in combat, she hadn't stopped him as she had thought that Mangu would have taught Shi Yan a lesson. She obviously knew the depth of Shi Yan's abilities, but as being from the Tuta Sea, she also clearly knew how unpredictable Mangu's innate god power was. In the Tuta Sea, Mangu had soon performed the great strength that ordinary people could hardly believe. She understood Mangu's power. Once Mangu went crazy, he would be able to release the strength which was enough to destroy a Nirvana Realm warrior. That was why she had felt that Mangu would have had defeated Shi Yan, helping her save her reputation in front of the other warriors of the Endless Sea. Regretfully, she had underestimated Shi Yan. Damn it! Chao Jilan gritted her teeth while checking on Mangu's wounds and quietly observing the bathing area. Swoosh! The water arrows continuously flew up to the sky. In the shower of the water arrows, Shi Yan's face was pale. His skin and flesh had been torn apart. He looked even more miserable than Mangu. However, his eyes still expressed the same coldness as before. The god light remained in his eyes proved that he still had a lot of energy. Although his appearance looked miserable, those were just external wounds. He was definitely able to engage in another fight if needed. With just a quick look, everyone was clear that Mangu had lost. Mangu was ranked second on the power rankings, yet was defeated by an unknown little rascal. Until now, the majority of people still didn't know Shi Yan's real identity. Who is he after all? Really strong. Mangu is ranked second on the power rankings, yet has been defeated. Would he perhaps be more dangerous than Zhongli Dun of the Martial Holy Palace? Impossible. Zhongli Dun has already broken through the Nirvana Realm for a long time, and is about to reach the second sky of the Nirvana Realm. In this world, only the ancient and mystical place like the Martial Holy Palace can temper that kind of monster. That's right. The gap between their realms is too big, so he obviously couldn't defeat Zhongli Dun. What if he also breaks through the Nirvana Realm? Chapter 312. Not the one who is content with staying in ponds. Chapter 312. Not the one who is content with staying in ponds. Editor. On the sacred Light Mountain's flank, Tang Yuan-nan and the elders of the Three Gods sect were all standing together on a branch of a small juniper tree. Their bodies swayed gently in the breeze as if they were weightless. The faces of the Three Gods sect's elders slightly expressed their astonishment. Watching Si Yin walking towards Xia Xinyan down there, they were full of suspicions. They mumbled, Although the immortal martial spirit of the Yang family is very powerful, it only has the recovering effect at the beginning, not the effect of increasing body strength. One of the elders with a scarred face was floundered for a while and said, "As what I have known, the immortal martial spirit has to reach to the last phase to become intimidating. Every time it breaks through one level, the immortal martial spirit's strength enhances dozens of times. However, before that, its efficiency is to merely increase the recovery ability of flesh and the flexibility of tendons and bones." Other elders also nodded. The ancient barbarian body of Mangu is different. The luridness of Mangu is displayed through his body strength. Even if he doesn't use the profound chi, the strength of the ancient barbarian body can still be compared with a full power strike of a normal Earth Realm warrior. If Mangu releases all of his strength, he will be able to defeat a Nirvana realm. In a face-to-face combat like this, I don't know how he could lose. That elder mused for a while before continuing. These two men didn't use any secret treasures. Mangu having been defeated is truly unreasonable. Tang Yuannan's face was still unchanged. He said, "There are some secrets in this little rascal's body indeed. I have noticed that the power in his body is extremely chaotic. It seems that several different strengths were coexisting within him. Hierarch, this little rascal is not the one who is content with staying in pawns." After that elder had thought for a while, he nodded, admitting Shi Yan's ability. Everyone seemed to agree. Tang Yuannan burst out laughing. He said, "He still doesn't know how to use the star martial spirit." Everyone's eyes brightened. Inside the martial spirit that the star god has transmitted, there is his spiritual mark. Once Shi Yan knows how to activate the secret technique for me, it will. Tang Yuannan didn't say further. The three god sect's elders were all shaken with fear. Their faces became strange. "This matter, wait until we go to Moon Island to organize the sect conference. Then we will decide whether or not he can become the new star god." Tang Yuannan finally spoke up after musing for a while. Everyone nodded with confused faces. At a hidden corner of the trading area, Linda's clothes were soaking wet. Her hair fell on her cheeks. Her dazed eyes were looking at that sturdy figure over there. Beside her, the eyes of a female follower of the three gods sect also brightened up with excitement. "Linda, do you actually know him? That's cool." This girl's name was Zhangli. Her small face had already turned red, and her hands tightly clenched while she looked very nervous. She urged Linda, Go there to meet him." Linda's subtle body suddenly shivered. A beam of bitterness was revealed from the corner of her mouth. She slightly shook her head. "No? Why?" Jiangli didn't understand. She tightened her fists and resentfully said, "As you know him, you have to take the chance. I can't have this chance though I want it so much. Linda, let me tell you, this guy will be an important person in the future. If you don't grab this chance to tie him up now, you won't have any other chances later." "I am still so far behind him," Linda whined. Her face looked disappointed. She said, "Only beautiful and powerful women like Chao Zilan or Xia Xinyan deserves him. I don't deserve." "It makes sense." Zhangli kept silent. She thought for a while before nodding. She gloomily said, "This guy is too dangerous. Sigh, being with a person like that is not easy either. But if it were me, as long as I could be with him, I would have been willing to do anything, even to be his concubine. I am just afraid he won't lay his eyes on me." While talking, Zhangli took out a bronze mirror then started counting the pimples on her face. After a while, she put her temper aside and whiningly said, "All right, I should stop thinking about it." Linda was bewildered looking at the sturdy figure that was attracting thousands of eyes. As she didn't have enough courage to walk over, she could only stand at the dark corner, quietly watching Shi Yan's vigorous body that seemingly had the god lights wrapping around it. In the bathing area, Chao Zilan's eyes became strange. While curling up her lips, she was silently watching Shi Yan's back, seeing him revealing a smile and walking towards Xia Xinyan. "Didn't sell himself cheap just for some interests, nor accepted me for the Chao family's forces. Shi Yan, I have started to like you." Chao Zilan mumbled to herself. Then, her full lips slightly shivered. revealed a mesmerizing smile on her face. It seemed that she just had a true feeling for Yin as of now. Her behaviors before were merely the rationale trading. She had never been moved except for seeing Yin as her ally in the future. She had wanted to make use of the marriage to bind him without any romantic attachments. However, when Yin had coldly rejected her in front of numerous people, his heartless words were like miraculous seeds that were planted in her heart, bringing out a strange vibration. It seems like I should treat you more honestly. Chao Zilan revealed a beautiful smile. Her eyes were full of confidence. In front of other people, her jade-like hands constantly patted Mangu's body, and then she poured out all the medicinal powder inside dozens of vases and jars on his body. Several sturdy men with leather cloths wrapping around their bodies suddenly appeared, standing in one line behind Mangu. Wait until he wakes up, then give him the medicine in this jade vase. Chao Zilan stood up, sluggishly straightened her back. The dazzling lights around her body gradually vanished, exposing a blue dress that embraced the mesmerizing curves of her body. When she slothfully stretched out her shoulders, the curve exposing at her bosom agitated everyone. The big warriors of the uncultivated barbarian sect suddenly gasped with reddened faces, but they didn't dare to have any wicked thoughts. Being one of the forces in the Tuda Sea, they knew how powerful the Chao family was, and even knew more clearly about the status of this beautiful woman in the Chao's family. Although the uncultivated barbarian sect's power was mighty, they still had to submit if confronting the Chao family. People outside of the Tuda Sea knew that the Chao family was very dangerous, but they still didn't know the Chao family's real ability, which was even more terrifying than what they could ever imagine. These warriors of the Tuda Sea knew it very well. Even though Mangu had been injured because of her, they didn't dare to show any intentions of vengeance. Take good care of Mangu. He just got external injuries. After using my medicines, with his body, he will recover after 7 days. Chao Zilan instructed them as if the people of the uncultivated barbarian sect were her subordinates. Only after that, she moved her charming body and left. Those followers of the uncultivated barbarian sect nodded constantly, didn't seem to be angry at Chao Zilan when she treated them like the Chao family's servants. Ha ha ha, I didn't expect that you were that dangerous. Yi Zhongfeng raised his cup of wine and took a sip. He revealed an immodest smile on his face. He then rushed towards Yin, who was approaching, and said, I have been looking after your woman very carefully. She is still whole without any damages. You don't need to thank me, though. Ha ha ha. Xia Xinyan blushed and embarrassedly stared at him. Yi Zhongfeng wasn't scared. He continued speaking and laughing. No need to be ashamed. When Miss Zhao stole your man, weren't you very proactive? When everything has been fine again, are you now going to reject it? Ha ha ha. You women are all deceitful. I know it. Lin Yiqi scolded him. Can you shut your stinky mouth for a while? It is very hard for them to see each other. When they are about to say something that is nauseously sweet and sentimental, you bastards had to have jumped in and destroyed the mood. You tell me, how can I enjoy the play? Enjoy the play? Yi Zhongfeng harumphed Jia. You better watch this kind of things less. You are still young. I am afraid that you couldn't help but feel burning inside. Then, Master would blame me as well. I wouldn't be able to take it. Jia, you'd be better not to dream about this. I know that you have been waiting for pure love, but with your personality that makes other people vomit blood, you can only attract the beasts. Little Bai, it has been long since we haven't fought with each other. Lin Yiqi's eyes were half closed, forming a moon shape which implied many meanings. Yi Zhongfeng's face slightly changed. He raised his head looking toward the sky and then mumbled to himself, Oh, it is getting dark. The stars are going to rise. It's time to find a place to rest. Lin Yiqi coldly looked at him. She harumphed and then shifted her attention to Yin and Xia Xinyan. Her face was full of expectation. Let's go. After approaching, Yin revealed a smile and said to Xia Xinyan, I want to see your grandfather. I have something to tell him. Xia Xinyan smiled and nodded. Okay. After speaking, she went straight outside without paying attention to the other people that were surrounding her. Lin Yiqi's face was now flooded with disappointment. She dispiritedly said, Not like that. Don't tell me you want to see the hot scene? Yi Zhangfeng giggled. Before Lin Yiqi got irritated, he hurriedly said, Jia, you are free anyway, let's follow them to see. I will follow you. Lin Yiqi nodded, then hastily urged, let's go. Quick. Of course, of course. Yi Zhangfeng forced a smile. He then hurriedly ran after Shi Yin and shouted, Good brother, wait for me. At a corner of the trading area, Gu Ling Lung gritted her white teeth. Her body slightly trembled. Her eyes were as if they wanted to projected flames, and her mouth kept cursing Shi Yin non-stop. Shi Yin, you are such a bastard. You will not die decently. I curse you to be slashed into hundreds of pieces, and that your soul will scatter and perish. She both cursed and wiped away the stains on her body. Her entire body was soaking wet, exposing beautiful curves. However, with her wet clothes tightly stuck to her body, as well as being greasy, she looked a little sluttish. Before the tavern had collapsed, as she had been passionately waving her hands to support Mangu, she had jumped out of the tavern a little bit late. She had been swept along with the tavern, falling right on the redundant food floating on the water. That was why she had this appearance. Of course, she blamed all the responsibility on Shi Yan. When she had witnessed Shi Yan's strength by her own eyes, she had been so angry that her entire body had trembled. Stop screaming. He has left already. Chu Yinqing, on the contrary, was clean. Her eyes showed the confusion, watching Shi Yan leaving. Then, she suddenly remembered something, turning her head around looking at the group of young men who had stood up for her from before. Seeing their miserable appearances, their ruffled hair, and then comparing them with Shi Yan's cold face, she felt disheartened. Although Shi Yan was a bastard, he was much stronger than those soft eggs. Chu Yinqing thought to herself. Her eyes then flared up a strange light. It was unknown what she had just figured out. Chapter 313. The Soul Bridge. Chapter 313. The Soul Bridge. Editor. On a deserted island near the immortal island of the Kiara Sea, in front of the heaven gate that was immersed in the dazzling light, numerous demon dwellers like a colony of ants were going back and forth. The heaven gate, which was originally big enough for only one person to get through, was gradually widening more and more. There were dozens of demon beasts of the six-horned demon dragon demon area in the sky. They were more than 50 meters long, carrying a bunch of corpses. They came here from everywhere, then dropped those corpses on the ground. On this island, besides the demon dwellers with peculiar shapes, many human corpses piled up on the ground. The corpses covered the entire island, stacking as high as a small mountain. The ground became red as dark red blood flooded all over the island. In the middle of the demon dwellers' cries and shouts, countless corpses on the island were flung into the heaven gate. In just a few minutes, the number of human corpses that had been hurled into the heaven gate had gone up to hundreds. The scene of people whining was happening throughout the Kiara Sea. The demon dwellers kept slaughtering non-stop throughout the thousands of islands in this area. The islands which had been protected by the Yang family, Xia family, and the evil Wonderland had turned to be dead islands. There was no one left on these islands. The demon beasts of the demon area had always been patrolling the islands in the Kiara Sea. All of them had huge bodies and were ridden by the demon dwellers. They went to every possible place to collect the human corpses. Every time the demon beasts' backs were strapped full of corpses, they would fly back to the island that connected with the heaven gate and then threw those corpses upon the piles of corpses that were now as high as a mountain on the island. Many demon dwellers were screaming and throwing human corpses into the heaven gate tirelessly. It was unknown for how long this scene had been occurring. It looked like they would never stop unless they had transported all of the corpses. The fourth demon area. The gloomy sky didn't have the moon nor the stars nor the sun, except for the savage and dreary seen all the way to the horizon. Pitch-black mountain chains dominated, covering the entire sky and earth. In a vast dark forest, dense demonic miasma hovered above the intimidating giant trees that couldn't be seen in the Grace mainland. Demonic beasts, which had massive bodies of dozens of meters, were furiously fighting against each other. Bloody battles happened here and there. Above the immense dark forest, countless corpses were hovering about in the sky. Those corpses were connected, forming a lump of meat that extended to the skyline. All of the corpses were humankind, to be exact, the humankind from the Kiara Sea of the Endless Sea. Numerous corpses piled up, interconnecting to form a big bridge. One side of the bridge connected with the splendid Heaven Gate. Every time the corpses appeared, hundreds of Sky Realm demon dwellers in the Heaven Gate poured the souls of the humankind out of the vases and jars in their hands. As those souls from the Kiara Sea had been tempered by a secret technique, they were full of evil auras. As soon as they got out of the vases, they were roughly refined one more time before turning into a black liquid. This liquid ran onto the corpses, which made the gap between these corpses extremely solid. It seemed that the demon dwellers of this demon area were building a bridge. This construction was exceptionally huge. It was unknown for how long it had been carried on. Millions of human corpses were used to build the foundation of this bridge. The black liquid, which was created by millions of human souls, was used to make the concrete. It was floating in the sky of the demon area, leading to an extremely remote place in the demon area. Black lights constantly sparked on the big bridge. The soul bridge hanged in the demon area's sky. One end connected to the Heaven Gate, and the other end led to a mystical place of the demon area. Every time more corpses and souls were thrown into the Heaven Gate, the soul bridge would slowly extend a little bit. The distance between one end of the bridge and the mystical place of the demon area were getting shorter. This spectacular construction looked like it was going to be completed soon. Sevenfold Underworld. The sky was dark green, and the air was overwhelmed with icy and erosive aura. Further ahead, the ground was full of deep holes. Those deep holes were like big, wide, opened bloody mouths that were waiting for human flesh. Inside the holes, the colorful liquid was babbling, in the middle of which, air bubbles blistered constantly. The air bubbles blistered then exploded. The auras with different colors spread out from inside the holes and then blended with the dark aura of this world, making the dark aura even denser. If looking down from the sky, there were no even and flat areas in this land. The ground was rugged and rough. Those deep holes, where the air bubbles constantly blistered, were like pimples. Whenever they broke, some frightening auras flew out. Among those holes, there was a huge cave which occupied 1/10 of the territory of this continent. Inside this huge cave, the black liquid was gurgling. This cave had many paths which connected with other numerous caves that made the liquid from all of the caves in the entire continent stream to one place, creating the peculiar deep sea. The deep sea was boundless. It was even much bigger than the 5 big seas of the Endless Sea combined. In the deep sea, the seawater was black, which seemed to be boiling up all the time. Bubbles, big and small, continually blistered then broke out, spreading out the colorful auras. The colorful auras condensed into a dense, undispersed miasmatic curtain, covering the entire deep sea sky. Above the deep sea, countless dark dwellers' corpses were hovering around. Many dark dwellers were standing on those corpses. Inside a whirlpool amid the deep sea, the spin of the whirlpool was constantly swallowing up the dark dwellers' corpses which were hovering around above the deep sea. With every passing second, dozens of corpses were swept into that whirlpool. In the middle of the whirlpool, many dark dwellers in the air were pouring out the souls of the dark dwellers which were contained in the vases in their hands. After that, these souls also turned into the black liquid watering on the corpses. Besides, in the center of the whirlpool, a dull light column, which was like a big mouth of the demon beasts, was slowly devouring the corpses. The other side of that big mouth was a gloomy place. In the middle of the air, the soul bridge, which was made of the dark dwellers' corpses, was gradually extending toward a persistent direction. In this space, no aura of strength existed. There was no sky, no earth, and no living creatures, except only for the soul bridge. In this murky space, the soul bridge seemed to be spurred by some unknown strength. Every time one corpse was added, the soul bridge again reached out a little bit more. The direction that this soul bridge was aiming for was the same with the place that the soul bridge of the demon area was leading to. Once these two soul bridges adjoined, The sevenfold underworld and the fourth demon area will be interconnected after tens of millions of years. In order to link these gloomy spaces, the Dark King of the sevenfold underworld and the Demon King of the demon area had planned it for over hundreds of years. The point of time when these two worlds connected was coming closer. In the fourth demon area, on the peak of a mountain which had been created by the stack of white bones, 49 demon dragons were flying around in the sky. The demon dragons opened their big mouths, exposing the sparkling fangs that could make other people fearfully tremble, and then disgorged black smokes. The dragon aura of the demon dragons was overwhelming the entire Bone Mountain's peak. On the peak, there were 108 white bone pillars. The pillars were splendid like jades. The images of the demon gods of the ancient time were engraved on the surface of the pillars. 108 white bone pillars formed a miraculous formation. Their positions were arranged based on the changes of the stars. The dragon auras, which were disgorged by the 49 demon dragons, were all absorbed by those white bone pillars. When those bone pillars had absorbed the dragon aura to a specific degree, the demon gods of the ancient time, which were engraved on the surface of the pillars, would revive and then rush to the altar in the middle of the formation. The rhombus-shaped altar was made of white bones. Layers of boundaries blockaded the surroundings of the altar. Between the layers of boundaries outside the altar, many kinds of earth-destructive auras were conflicting with each other non-stop, shooting out waves of energy that were so violent that all the warriors of the demon area were able to feel them. A skinny old man with white hair on his temples and a serious face was standing in the middle of the altar. He was totally naked, suffering different kinds of power striking his body. Besides, he was also enduring the attacks of the demon gods of the ancient time, which could hit him at any time. Every time one demon god of the ancient time broke through the boundaries and went inside, a holy armament suddenly appeared on his naked body that radiated thousand-zhong holy lights. The holy armament contained tremendous god power, emitting the light which was similar to the converged light of the sunlight and the moonlight. Moreover, the holy armament kept discharging impetuous aura non-stop. The demon gods of the ancient time released a variety of magics, either swinging their arms and launching thousands of lightning strikes, or the violent punch that was as heavy as a mountain, or dividing into hundreds of demon gods. However, these attacks on that elderly man were all crushed and bounced right off by the holy armament's energy waves. While battling, sometimes his bare body was full of wounds. Other times, his arms had been both cut off. However, they were all regenerated and regained their normal state just in a short time. His body was almost immortal, eternally indestructible. At the same time, he also opened his mouth, spurted out a drop of blood. That blood drop was as red as ruby and able to tear apart the boundaries and smash the white bone pillars. Nevertheless, every time one white bone pillar had been broken, the thousand-zhong bone mountain instantly vibrated, and then a brand new white bone pillar rose up again. The number of the 108 white bone pillars had remained unchanged so that the formations could operate normally. Outside of the formation, 3 white bones dharma bodies were as big as mountains, emitting demon aura that was as vast as the sea. On the sparkling white bone body, thousands of strange badges, which looked like stars in the sky blinking non-stop, were slowly changing their positions. One of the 3 white bones dharma bodies was looking toward the altar. 2 demon flames were dancing in its sockets. Its eyes were staring at the person on the altar. Yang Tian Emperor, the strength of your body has been consumed 80%. The reason you have been able to have persistently endured until now is due to your peculiar immortal martial spirit and the Yang family's eternal holy armament that has been transmitted throughout many years. Although you have just reached the first sky of the spirit realm, you can rely on burning the immortal blood to strain that long. Yang Tian Emperor, you deserve to be the once-in-a-thousand-year exceptional genius of the Yang family. The white bones dharma body in the middle suddenly spoke up. But your immortal blood is limited. The eternal holy armament requires the immortal blood to continue releasing the god power. When you have used up all the immortal blood, how much longer can you sustain this heavenly demon wind god formation? The person on the altar still closed his eyes tightly. When the demon gods of the ancient time disappeared, he regained his naked body. I, Bosu, have been engaging in wars for my whole life. I have met so many warriors, but I have to admit that you are the opponent that I respect. The White Bones Dharma body hesitated for a while before giving the advice. If you agree to let the Yang family belong to the demon area, I will immediately remove the heavenly demon wind god formation and assure the Yang family's glory throughout 10 consecutive generations. No one on earth that can make me, Yang Tian Emperor, submissive. Chapter 314, 3 Antiquities. Chapter 314, 3 Antiquities. Editor. White Bones Dharma body of Bo Sun suddenly mused. Yang Tian Emperor's eyes remained closed tightly. His naked body was radiating peculiar lights. Just after having rested for a short time, he seemed to have restored some parts of his strength. Other people could feel that the strength of his body was surging up. Yang Tian Emperor, you are just a thief. Bo Sun suddenly harumphed and spoke up after being silent for a long while. If you, Chao Qiu Dao of the Chao family, and the palace headmaster Yang Etian of the martial holy palace haven't shared the immortal blood and the soul remnant of the God King's body, what qualification that you have to confront me when you have just reached the first sky of the spirit realm? Yang Tian Emperor kept silent. 100 years ago, you, Chao Qiu Dao, and Yang Etian had just entered the Nirvana realm, but you had a big luck. The three of you got lost in the turbulent space and found a God King's grave inside the rift of space. You and Chao Qiu Dao swallowed more than half of the God King's blood, and Yang Etian obtained the remnant of the God King's soul. That was why you guys could build up the three big forces in the endless sea, creating the legend of the three of you. Without the God King's corpse, how could the three of you rebel that fast, be strong enough to fight with me within 100 years only? Frankly speaking, the three of you are all the Tomb Raiders. Yang Tian Emperor knitted his eyebrows but didn't utter a word. The God King's blood had helped you and Cap Qiu Dao be strong enough to defeat the third sky of the Spirit Realm warriors, although you guys were just at the first sky of the Spirit Realm. After all, the God King's blood has made your profound chi have some anomalies and brought you a little god power. Yang Etian, thanks to obtaining the soul remnant of the God King, he could enter the second sky of the Spirit Realm. After 100 years of studying the soul remnant, he has captured a little of the God technique. That is how the martial holy palace has become the #1 forces in the endless sea. Bo Sun revealed a faint smile. Regretfully, although you guys had swallowed the body of the God King, you didn't attain the inheritance of the God King. You let the inheritance run away and hide inside the rift of space, drifting to the unknown place until now. If one of you had obtained the inheritance of the God King 100 years ago, the situation of the endless sea would have changed differently. If so, the fourth demon area and the sevenfold underworld should have soon become your hunting area. Eventually, Yang Tian Emperor opened his eyes in which there seemed to have thousands of twinkling stars moving. Although I am in captivity, Chao Qiu Dao and Yang Etian are still out there in the endless sea. If both of them unite, you and Qi Yin cannot get any benefits. Ha ha. Bo Sun suddenly burst into laughing like crazy. His laughter echoed here and there. This is the tragedy of the humankind. If it wasn't because you, Chao Qiu Dao, and Yang Etian haven't got along well, always struggled in the endless sea for the blood and the soul remnant of the God King that made the spiritual powers have been dispersed, you guys wouldn't have stopped at this current cultivation realm. That year, you, Chao Qiu Dao, and Yang Etian were close friends, luckily entered the turbulent space region together. However, because of the God King's corpse, you guys turned to be enemies. The humankind's greed is even much bigger than the demon tribes. As you guys haven't got along well with each other, you all have got injured after several battles. That's why your cultivation has encountered some difficulties. Otherwise, your current strength should have torn apart the heavenly demon wind god formation. Yang Tian Emperor silently released a sigh without saying anything. What a pity. In the empty sockets of Bo Sun, the demon flames were still dancing non-stop. Although knowing that you have been captured in the heavenly demon wind god formation, Yang Etian and Chao Qiu Dao still pretend to know nothing about this. Presently, the army of the demon tribes has entered the Kiara Sea, slaughtering millions of people of the Kiara Sea. The Soul Bridge is also going to be completed soon, but Chao Chiu Dao and Yang Etian haven't had any actions. Until the sevenfold underworld and the demon area are connected, with the strength of billions of people, we surely invade the endless sea. Eradicate Yang Etian and Chao Chiu Dao, not to let them continue expanding. Perhaps they have started taking actions. It is just you don't know about it. Yang Tian Emperor coldly said. It's too late now. Bo Sun burst into laughter that could violently shake the sky. Avi Dark King has convinced the other two Dark Kings of the sevenfold underworld to use 3 millions of the Dark Dwellers of the sevenfold underworld as the material to build the Soul Bridge. Not long after this, the Soul Bridge of the underworld can connect with the demon area. That will be the end of the endless sea. Yang Tian Emperor's face changed finally. Until now, he realized the danger of the current situation. However, he was resentful that he was being imprisoned in the heavenly demon wind god formation and impossible to escape from it to return to the endless sea. Yang Tian Emperor, I still have another suggestion. You should consider it carefully. Bo Sun hesitated for a while before speaking. If you agree to help me, cooperate with me to kill Yang Etian and Chao Chiu Dao, I promise I will give you the God King's remnant and the blood inside the bodies of Chao Chiu Dao and Yang Etian. Once you collect enough the God King's blood, you will be able to enter the realm that ordinary people can't even imagine. Yang Tian Emperor tightly knitted his eyebrows, didn't reply. Of course, after that, you have to help me with one thing, which is using the God King's strength to break the walls between the first, the second, and the third demon area. Once the 3 demon areas are opened, not only the endless sea but even the Grace mainland will fall into the misery. Yang Tian Emperor both coldly smiled and shook his head at the same time. I don't want to become the eternal sinner nor the stepping stone for your demon tribes. You should find someone else. Demon tribes? Bo Sun gritted his teeth and smiled. The 3 antiquities consist of the Grand Antiquity, the High Antiquity, and the Remote Antiquity. During the Remote Antiquity, the Yang family was really the human tribe. But during the High Antiquity, the Yang family was actually one of the pagan tribes. If it wasn't because the Yang family had only passed on the blood, not the typical features of the pagan tribe after several times of hybridization, I am afraid that you, Yang Tian Emperor, would have been much different from the human more than I am. Yang Tian Emperor's face changed in fear. His lips shivered for a while but didn't explain anything. Therefore, don't mention pagan tribes to me. After all, we both are pagan tribes. No need to be too stubborn. Bo Sun frigidly smiled. How could you know about this? Yang Tian Emperor kept silent for a long while, then released a long sigh and asked. 100 years ago, in the endless sea, there appeared the turbulent space region. Before that, it had also appeared once in the 4th demon area. Bo Sun's voice became heavy. And me, I was still a normal hunter of the Dragonhorn clan by that time. I also unintentionally entered the turbulent space region and found something in the rift of space. Otherwise, I wouldn't have attained the Demon King position now. The turbulent space region used to appear in the demon area as well? Yang Tian Emperor was astonished. If not, how could I know the story about you, Chao Chiu Dao, and Yang Etian as clearly as the back of my hand? Bo Sun coldly laughed. The things that I have gained helps me know what have happened with the 3 of you. Some secrets in the Grand Antiquity, the High Antiquity, the Remote Antiquity, and also know that Yang family was one of the pagan tribe in the High Antiquity. You have talked that much just because you want me to unite with the demon tribes. But you certainly understand me as well. Yang Tian Emperor cold-heartedly said. Bo Sun suddenly mused. After a while, he released a sigh, nodded the big skull of the white bones Dharma body, then said, I have soon known that you would not agree. However, as you are the opponent that I respect, I think that I should let you know something before you are tortured to death. Besides, people who could return alive after entering the turbulent space region were just a few. There are several things that I have held on for my whole life, so I want to find someone that I can share with. Yang Tian Emperor released a sigh. I tell you the last time. I know where the Yang family is hiding in the 4th demon area. After the soul bridges are connected, if you still don't think it through, the Yang family will perish. The hereditary possession that you have built up during your entire life will go up in smoke in a blink. As soon as Bo Soon finished talking, the demon flames inside his sockets became gloomier. It seemed that he had withdrawn the host soul of the White Bone's Dharma body. At the same time, the demon gods on 108 White Bone pillars started to operate again, massively flying out, dashing toward Yang Tian Emperor. In the Sky Sea, on the Sky Demon Mountain Range, a fierce beast was tearing apart the body of the 6th-level Stormy Rock. Half of the 5-meter-long body of the Stormy Rock had been devoured. Its brain and the demon crystal had been swallowed up. This ferocious beast was enjoying tearing its prey down. The beast's brutal eyes flickered the cold lights that could break people's souls. Its entire body sparked black lights. Its aura was very terrifying. Beside it was a pile of the giant beast bones. The skin and flesh had been eaten up, leaving the white bones only. Not long after that, the Stormy Rock had also been devoured completely. The beast's bones suddenly crackled. Many circles of black lights started to spread out from its body at the same time. Wherever the black lights diffused, the ancient trees there, which were dozens of meters tall, were crushed down. The beasts who were hiding from afar also realized those energy waves, and thus hurriedly fled away without leaving any traces after just a short time. The beast's bones constantly produced explosive sounds. The 10-meter-long body was immersed in the black lights and began to shrink. Inside the cocoon of lights, the beast kept changing non-stop. After 3 days, it had turned to be a monster with a human shape. Its entire body was covered with thorns. The beast turned its head toward the moon, howling. Its body was covered with the demon aura and the dark aura. The brutal aura rose up overwhelmingly to the entire sky. Gueliao, this is my name, it mumbled with a low tone. Its voice was as sharp as a knife scratching the glass, which made others' flesh creep. He has asked me to wait for him, but I have been waiting for so long, I can't wait anymore. After talking and answering to itself for a while, its green eyes seemed to flare up Shi Yan's image. Raising its head looking toward the sky, it seemed to be arranging its thoughts. No one knew what it was thinking about at this moment. Very long after that, a pair of fleshly wings suddenly grew up from its backbone. It then flew up straight to the sky, getting out of the Sky Demon Mountain Range just in a blink. Grr. On the Sky Demon Mountain Range, about 10 big ferocious beasts lifted their faces up to the sky howling, looking at its figure. Chapter 315, Dark Magnetic, Noxious Mist. Chapter 315, Dark Magnetic, Noxious Mist. Editor. The Sun Island. Shi Yan and Xia Xinyan went to a 3-story stone house. In front of the house, the flowers and plants were luxuriant. The spiritual aura was dense, and some sunflowers were luminescent under the moonlight, which was quite peculiar. Xia Shanchuan was standing among those sunflowers, clasping his hands behind his back, looking at the moonlight as if he was considering something. Being the master of the Xia family, Xia Shanchuan had been highly respected in the Endless Sea. However, on this sun island, no one had paid him a visit. The other forces didn't seem to know that the headmaster of the Xia family had also come to the Sun Island. It was impossible to know when the people's hearts would be cold or warm. The Kiara Sea had been screwed, the evil Wonderland had been treacherous, and the Yang family had retreated. It was truly hard for the Xia family to firmly withstand themselves from all the schemes that were being plotted against them. Without the Yang family supporting their backs, as well as the fact that their great master had often pitched himself into insanity, in the other people's eyes, the Xia family wouldn't have ever been able to rise again and return to the top 15 of the most powerful forces of the Endless Sea. Therefore, when the Xia family had closely approached the sea near the Wind Cloud Island, both the Heaven Lake Divine Land and the Gu family, initially, hadn't considered it a big deal. They even wanted to bribe the remnants of the Xia family's forces in helping them deal with the oncoming invasion of the demon dwellers. The ambitions of the Xia family had soon sunk into the bottom of the glass. If it wasn't because Shi Yan had intimidated Gu Shao and Yu Qin to make each of them give out 5 islands which had then become the Xia family's places of refuge, the internal conflicts of the Xia family would have been more serious, which probably would have led them to their dissension. Xia Shanchuan knew that although dangers were set everywhere in the Kiara Sea right now, it also hid the opportunity for the Xia family to take back their power. He hadn't known how to achieve it before. However, after Shi Yin had returned to the Kiara Sea, making Gu Xiao and Yu Qin submit, he seemed to have sensed something and decided to hold on to the Yang family closely, betting on this game. Shi Yin, the Xia family has placed our bets on you. I hope you will not let me down. Xia Shanchuan mumbled to himself with full of emotions inside his heart. He looked at the bright moon in the sky while being overwhelmed with many complicated thoughts. It has been 5 years since Shi Yin first arrived at the Kiara Sea. Previously, Xia Shanchuan hadn't known anything whatsoever about Shi Yin, so it was only natural that he basically hadn't laid his eyes on a little rascal like him. However, until now, he still didn't know what kind of trick Shi Yin had to have consecutively defeated Gu Xiao and Yu Qin. Even the sun god Tang Yuannan seemed to respect him as well. That was why he had assigned his man to deliver the invitation to the Xia family to come here in order to discuss the plans of how to deal with the demon dwellers. Although Xia Shanchuan didn't exactly know what Shi Yin had in his hands, he could guess that Shi Yin should have had a slew of violent powers. As the master of the Xia family, he clearly knew the current dispositions of the other leaders in the Endless Sea. Thus he had no doubts about Gu Xiao and Yu Qin's position. Being able to have made Gu Xiao and Yu Qin submit and willingly give out 5 islands, Shi Yin definitely possessed a tremendous power that had deeply frightened them. Otherwise, Gu Xiao and Yu Qin would have never accepted or compromised with the Xia family. 5 years after the Yang family had fled, the fact that Shi Yin was able to have achieved this level alone had made Xia Shanchuan see him differently and reevaluate him again. Such a little rascal that no one could see through. Xin Yan being with him might be not a bad thing. Xia Shanchuan spoke to himself. Grandpa. While he was contemplating, Xia Xinyan's gentle voice came up from the yard. Xia Shanchuan raised his head up, seeing his granddaughter walking in together with Shi Yin. After 3 years without seeing Shi Yin, Xia Shanchuan realized that Shi Yin was sturdier as his aura was more mature. The power, which was as tremendous as that of a tiger, emitted from his body while he was walking. He indeed had the sense and vigor of intimidation that had made the other people admire him. While quietly nodding with a smile, Xia Shanchuan said with a moderate voice, "Little rascal, you are here?" Shi Yin beamed out a broad smile. "I am so glad to see you. When I had returned to the Endless Sea, people said that the Kiara Sea had fallen. I even thought that I couldn't have ever seen you again." The smile on Xia Shanchuan's face stiffened. He shook his head, released a sigh and said, "If it wasn't because we had fled in time, you couldn't ever have met me again." Korf korf. Around 50 meters away, Yi Zhangfeng dry coughed then giggled while waving at Shi Yin and asked, "Can I go in there?" Shi Yin was surprised and didn't know whether he should have laughed or cried. It was unknown as to why Yi Zhangfeng and Lin Yiqi kept following him. Although he had told them to stop, they still persistently clung to him. Shi Yin didn't know what to do with them. He was thinking if he should irritate and force them to back off. These 2 people? Xia Shanchuan didn't seem to understand anything either. He swept his eyes to those 2 people and asked Shi Yin, "Are they your friends?" "Haha, we are certainly his friends." Yi Zhangfeng nodded non-stop and quickly answered with a smile even before Shi Yin could have opened his mouth. "Very good friends. I have heard that the Xia family's master has such a good memory. As I now have a chance to see you, your reputation is well merited indeed." Shi Yin knitted his eyebrows. Xia Xinyan glanced at the 2 of them and said with a low voice, "Can you just go away? Wait until we finish talking, then you can return to fool around." On the way back, Yi Zhangfeng kept teasing her and Shi Yin. Although she didn't really bother much about it, as Yi Zhangfeng sometimes blethered something gross, she couldn't stand but be irritated with this guy who had a charming fair-skinned face and was as beautiful as a woman. She also cursed at him at the same time. "There's something I really want to tell you." He could see that other people didn't seem to welcome him, but instead, they even wanted to send him away. He hastily raised his hands and said with a serious gesture, "It is very important. I think the master of the Xia family will absolutely be very excited." Xia Shenchuan was astonished. What is it? Ah, I have come here with good intentions and hoping that we can build up a friendly relationship. Yi Zhangfeng revealed a faint smile, moved forward, then said with a somber face, I have heard that the former master of the Xia family, Xia Jingho, had cultivated and reached the first sky of the spirit realm. However, because there was something wrong with the reincarnation martial spirit that has now led him to be in a state of being half-conscious. Is this true? Xia Shunchuan tightly knitted his eyebrows, looking at him and said, The rumor is true. That year, in the Endless Sea, Xia Jingho was also a famous person. If it wasn't because of some troubles happening during the cultivation and the fact that he was often in a state of insanity, the Xia family wouldn't have had declined this much. Xia Shenchuan silently released a sigh. As hearing Yi Zhangfeng mention about this, Xia Shenchuan's face became awry. Yi Zhangfeng nodded, looking at Shi Yin, and then said with a smile, I can help the predecessor Xia Jingho's mind recover to its normal state. Shi Yan's eyes instantly brightened up. Xia Shenchuan and Xia Xinyan were trembling, looking at Yi Zhangfeng with a doubtful face. Lin Yiqi was also bewildered for a while before speaking with surprise. Little Bai, how long have you been here? How come you seem to know things more than the old master? He has warned me that I should not let you cause any disturbances. What do you want to do? Yi Zhangfeng giggled while shrugging, then said, The old master has said that I can do whatever I want as long as I don't violate the rules. Xia Shenchuan didn't understand what these two people were talking about. His eyes sparked a strange light. He looked straight at Yi Zhangfeng and said with a trembling voice, Little rascal, don't say it too certainly like that. There are several things that are not as easy as you have imagined. Shi Yin talked to Yi Zhangfeng with astonishment. Don't speak thoughtlessly if you are not sure. You guys don't believe it? Yi Zhangfeng looked like he was suffering unjustly. He explained, I only have good intentions. I will be the best alchemist in the future. The pellets that I refine can even revive the dead, let alone help others regain their consciousness. His boasts made Xia Shenchuan and Shi Yin be even more suspicious. Lin Yiqin pursed her lips contemptibly. Even the old master is scared of the pellets that you've refined. I hope that you don't kill anyone. Shi Yin. Who are these two people after all? Xia Shenchuan asked with doubt. Shi Yin was dazed for a while before explaining, I have just met them. Xia Shenchuan's face got stranger. Previously, I used to belong to the Spirit Treasure Wonderland, but I have been already expelled, so it is obvious if you don't know me. Yi Zhangfeng slightly laughed. The storage ring on his finger suddenly flared up, and a jade vase then emerged in his hand. Inside the vase, there was only one pill which was as big as a hazelnut. The pill itself was densely dotted with numerous tiny holes, where many rays of light splendidly radiated. I give you this vain spirit pellet. If you let Xia Jingho take it, I assure that he will no longer be half-conscious nor insane. Yi Zhangfeng smilingly said while handing the jade vase to Xia Shenchuan. Xia Shenchuan received it while his head was still in a daze. He strangely stared at the jade vase, carefully checking the vase with a suspicious face. Can this pellet really solve my father's problem? Of course, Yi Zhangfeng confidently said. Lin Yiqin's eyes beamed out peculiar lights. While she was gazing at Yi Zhangfeng as if she was staring at a monster, she uttered, Little Bai, has your brain been damaged? Why do you give this vain spirit pellet to the others? Do you know how many medicinal herbs that the old master has consumed to refine the vain spirit pellets? How many demon crystals have been used for this? 58 kinds of medicinal herbs, 3 demon crystals of the 8th level beasts, 20 demon crystals of the 7th level beasts. Yi Zhangfeng said loud and clear as if he was counting all the properties that he had in his house. He shrugged and said, I also know the process to refine the vain spirit pellets. It is just because my cultivation base is still low that I cannot start to make it yet. After Yi Zhangfeng had finished his words, both Shi Yin and Xia Shenchuan were shaken. If you have known about it so well, how come you are still giving it to him? Lin Yiqin asked with a confused face. Yi Zhangfeng, were you a member of the Spirit Treasure Wonderland? Shi Yin contemplated for a while before bursting into laughter. He said, I don't like to be fooled. This. Yi Zhangfeng's smile stiffened. He awkwardly rubbed his hands while shamefully explained, "Frankly speaking, I am the expelled disciple of the Spirit Treasure sect." The Spirit Treasure Wonderland in the Endless Sea was originally only one of the Spirit Treasure sect's branches. "You are not from the Endless Sea?" Xia Shunchuan's face instantly changed. "That's right." Yi Zhongfeng nodded. "I had crossed the dark magnetic noxious mist in coming here." Xia Shunchuan's and Xia Xinyan's faces turned totally pale after hearing it. They stared at Yi Zhongfeng like they were facing a monster. "The dark magnetic noxious mist?" Shi Yin was astonished, asking Xia Shunchuan with his knitted eyebrows, "Do you know that place?" Xia Shunchuan's eyes looked complicated. He nodded and said, "I have heard that the easternmost end of the Endless Sea is the dark magnetic noxious mist. According to the legend, behind the dark magnetic noxious mist is the center of the Grace mainland. For thousands of years, many high-class warriors of the Endless Sea have wanted to cross the dark magnetic noxious mist, but it seems that no one has been successful yet. Most of them have died inside the mist, including the God Ream warriors." Shi Yin was frightened. Chapter 316, Hidden Matters. Chapter 316, Hidden Matters. Editor. Even God Realm warriors cannot cross the dark magnetic noxious mist. Shi Yin was startled. His eyes were flooded with astonishment, bewilderedly looking at Yi Zhongfeng and Lin Yaqin at the side. Xia Shunchuan estimated the vein spirit pellet in his hand. His face displayed the caution as if the vein spirit pellet suddenly became heavy. Lin Yaqin didn't really care. She stood there, looking casually from east to west, and didn't seem to pay attention to the others' conversation. Yi Zhongfeng revealed an improper smile. However, his eyes seemed to contain some hidden meanings. "Have you really crossed the dark magnetic noxious mist?" Xia Shunchuan contemplated for a while before asking again with a more somber face. Yi Zhongfeng nodded and smiled. "How could you cross the dark magnetic noxious mist?" Obviously, Xia Shunchuan didn't believe him right away. Even the God Realm warriors couldn't have crossed that place. What did he have to be able to do so? "Hee, I can't tell you this." Yi Zhongfeng revealed a broad smile and deliberately said, "About this, our old master actually has some tricks. It will be nearly impossible for ordinary people to survive after entering the dark magnetic noxious mist. However, we are a little bit more special. Moreover, the old master has been living there all year round. He obviously isn't scared of the anomalies of that place." "Your master has been living inside the dark magnetic noxious mist all year round?" Xia Shunchuan couldn't help but scream with astonishment. Lin Yaqi's face was still incurious. She seemed to feel that Xia Shunchuan was way more surprised than he should have been. "That's true." Yi Zhongfeng nodded. "Our old master has been living there. Both of us have also spent most of our time there." Shi Yin tightly knitted his eyebrows. He suddenly had a suspicion that this little rascal probably had ulterior motives in coming to see him. "Why have you come to the Endless Sea?" Xia Shunchuan asked. "It is boring there, so I have gone out to find some fun," Yi Zhongfeng comfortably replied. As he saw that everyone all showed their suspicions, he awkwardly smiled and added, "Ah, I've come to the Endless Sea to find something as well." "Find something?" Shi Yin squinted and coldly asked, "Find what?" "Hee." Yi Zhongfeng just laughed without replying. He obviously didn't want to answer it. Shi Yin frigidly harumphed and didn't know what to ask for now. "Do you need the vein spirit pellet, or not?" Yi Zhongfeng seemed to be impatient. "If you don't need it, then give it back to me. This kind of toy is not cheap. I am still a little bit regretful." Xia Shunchuan tightly closed his hand at once. His appearance looked like he would never let go of it at any cost. He gritted his teeth and resentfully said, "I need it. Tell me, what is your condition?" "Condition?" Yi Zhongfeng hesitated for a while with his strange eyes before bursting out laughing and saying, "Presently, let's not discuss the condition. Wait until Xia Jingho recovers, then I will come and talk to him. It's useless to talk to you now. You can't understand nor possibly make any decisions by yourself." Xia Shunchuan was angry. His face didn't look good. "I am just telling the truth." Yi Zhongfeng didn't care about it. Instead, he smiled and waved at Shi Yin while speaking. All right, I will not disturb you anymore. Wait until the meeting on the island is over, and I will come and find you. I have come here just to give Xia Master the vain spirit pellet, nothing else." Under the astonished eyes of Shi Yin and Xia Shenchuan, Yi Zhangfeng stretched his arms, pulling Lin Yaqin, and walked out without caring if that girl had agreed or not. After leaving, Lin Yaqin's eyes were half closed, forming a new moon, while amiably looking at him. "Little Bai, why did you give the vain spirit pellet to that old man? That old man is only at the Earth realm. How much value does he have? Many people know how precious the vain spirit pellet is. If the old master knows that you have impulsively given it to the others, you are going to have a hard time." Yi Zhangfeng coldly harumphed and said, "Do you think I was willing to do it? In fact, the old master has told me to give this spirit pellet to the master of the Xia family. Perhaps the old master has refined this vain spirit pellet specifically for Xia Jingho." Lin Yaqin was bewildered, suspiciously shook her head and said, "How come? According to you, Shi Jingho is only at the first sky of the spirit realm and is often in his state of being insane. How could the old master become so preoccupied with him?" Xia Jingho used to cross the dark magnetic Noxious mist and was one of the very few high-class warriors who had safely gotten out of it. The old master used to meet him inside of the dark magnetic Noxious mist that year. Otherwise, Xia Shenchuan wouldn't have been able to know about the dark magnetic Noxious mist that much, which has proved that Xia Jingho had told him about this. Yi Zhangfeng seriously said, "He crossed the dark magnetic Noxious mist?" Lin Yaqi's eyes brightened. She seemed just to have figured out something and shouted, "Ah, that's right. Xia Jingho's insanity is caused by that area inside the dark magnetic Noxious mist? You have finally figured it out." Yi Zhangfeng smiled and said, "That's why." Lin Yaqin understood and nodded. No wonder the old master has agreed to give him one vain spirit pellet. If the vain spirit pellet can cure him, then it is surely a blessing in disguise. He will most likely be entering the new realm directly. It can be said that as he could get out of there alive, and has also been in this state of insanity for that long but hasn't died yet, so he is not just a normal man. I think he has soon found something, and if the vain spirit pellet can help his mentality regain its normal functions, he can at least enter the second sky of the spirit realm and will perhaps perceive some kind of magic. The thing that the old master wants are the experiences that this guy has been through. It is so. Who are those two people? After Yi Zhangfeng and Lin Yaqin had left, Xia Xinyan knitted her eyebrows while asking Shi Yin with suspicion, "Is it true that you have just met them?" "I have just met them," Shi replied with a miserable smile. "I didn't expect the situation of what just happened. The identity of those two people is mystical. Moreover, they are not from the Endless Sea for sure. I have never heard that anyone could live inside the dark magnetic Noxious mist before. It is strange indeed." Xia Shenchuan's eyes flared up a strange light while holding the vain spirit pellet. "This vain spirit pellet looks like it has some possible effects indeed. Perhaps it will be able to cure the strange sickness that is ailing your great-grandfather." Xia Xinyan's face was excited. If great-grandfather can recover, the Xia family can be freed from the current situation. "Of course," Xia Shenchuan replied with a confident face. "If your great-grandfather didn't become like this, in the Endless Sea, people like Gu Xiao and Yu Qin would have had to pay their respects in front of him. In the Five Seas, the people who can defeat your great-grandfather is only numbered on one's fingers." "Why did he become like that?" Xia Xinyan asked with a little bit worry. Every time the reincarnation martial spirit of the Xia family breaks through to the new realm, there is always a high possibility of losing oneself. If so, could it be that I might also encounter it in the future? "It isn't similar to your imagination." Xia Shenchuan shook his head. "Although our reincarnation martial spirit has the possibility of being possessed by the devil, it is not as serious as you have imagined. No one of the Xia family's ancestors had ever encountered the insanity as your great-grandfather has. So why has great-grandfather been like that? Perhaps it has something related to the dark magnetic Noxious mist." Xia Shenchuan's face was heavy, seeming not to be very sure about it either. He told Xia Xinyan the story despite Shi Yan's presence. 50 years ago, when your great-grandfather had just entered the spirit realm, he suddenly wanted to take a risk to barge into the dark magnetic noxious mist. He had stayed there for 9 years before returning. Not long after that, he became like this. Before entering the dark magnetic noxious mist, your great-grandfather was totally normal. I think that something had definitely happened inside of the dark magnetic noxious mist that had made him become like this. Shi Yan's face became horrific. Do the other two people know about the story of great-grandfather? Xia Xinyan lucidly thought about this. Probably. Xia Shenchuan was not very certain. I have decided to give this vain spirit pellet to him because the duration that he can maintain his consciousness is getting shorter. If it continues like this, he won't possibly be perspicacious anymore. We have to try even though there is just one thin ray of hope left. Xia Xinyan slightly released a sigh and didn't say anything further. Shi Yin, why did you look for me? After having talked for a while, Xia Shenchuan suddenly remembered that Shi Yin coming here should be for something. He couldn't help but ask. Leave the 10 islands taken from the Gu family and the Heaven Lake Divine Land for later. The Xia family's members should go to the Snow Dragon Island. If we can gather our forces, it will be easier for us to support each other. Shi Yin quickly said without wasting any more time. That was what he had wanted to discuss with Xia Shenchuan. Currently, the demon dwellers were storing up and gathering forces in the Kiara Sea. They could have launched their attacks at any possible time. The Xia family was presently in the middle of the Hengluo Sea and the Blackwater Sea, which was a relatively sensitive area. The demon dwellers probably wouldn't have paid attention to it. However, if they did take actions, the Xia family's forces would hardly be able to resist them. Snow Dragon Island. After contemplating for a while, Xia Shenchuan firmly nodded eventually. Okay, I will immediately arrange this after my return. You can transmit the information now if possible. As soon as possible. Shi Yin said. After considering, Xia Shenchuan also thought that the idea was right and said, All right, I am sending the message now. Shi Yin slightly revealed a smile, looked at Xia Xinyan, winking at her and said, Shall we take a walk? Xia Xinyan's face blushed. She stealthily had a quick glance at her grandfather. As she saw Xia Shenchuan seemed not to have any reactions, she then slightly nodded and followed Shi Yin. On the coast of the Sun Island, the ocean breezes were gently blowing. Shi Yin and Xia Xinyan were sitting together on a huge green stone. Under the chilly moonlight, the two of them were watching the sea in the gentle breeze, enjoying the peace that belonged only to the two of them, for now. Shi Yin slightly stretched out his hand, holding Xia Xinyan's small hand and giggled. Xia Xinyan's face reddened. She threw him a quick glance, struggled a few times, but couldn't get out of his grab. Hence, she stopped struggling and said with a weak voice, Time flies. It has been 3 years already. That's right. Honestly, in recent years, we haven't had many chances to meet each other. We have always been in a hurry, having quickly parted after just a short time of being together. It has always been a very long time before we could see each other again. Shi Yin released a sigh. I had many thoughts when I had just arrived at the Endless Sea. My cultivation has had big improvements in recent years, but our relationship doesn't seem to have much progress. Shall we change a little bit? Shi Yan's flaming eyes fixed on her appealing body. His fervid eyes concealed many inner meanings. Xia Xinyan's snow-white neck slightly reddened. Her eyes were bashful. She blamed him with a low voice. Why do you always have these kinds of things in your head? Please, Shi Yin giggled, forcefully embraced her waist and pulled her charming body closer to his. Chapter 317. The Covenant. Chapter 317. The Covenant. Editor. Xia Xinyan bungled as her face blushed and her delicate body was struggling. She was embarrassed and resentful at the same time. Shi Yin chuckled, didn't care about her wriggle. His arms were like a chain tightly wrapping around her body. The more she struggled, the tighter the shackle would be. The fresh, orchid-like fragrance from her wonderful body spread out, which refreshed Shi Yan's mind and brightened the broad smile on his face. This rascal, the beautiful girl with the orchid aroma breaths, was timid. Her mesmerizing gesture churned up the beast's thoughts in his mind, like the waves surged up and crashed ashore. You and I should have been closer long time ago. Since you have appeared in the sacred stone square, I have determined to have you for myself sooner or later." Shi Yin buoyantly laughed out loud. His two arms suddenly embraced her small boneless waist tightly, lifting her up and placing her on his lap. She was a little bit scared. Her face blushed so much that could captivate other people. She struggled even harder. A happy smile was blossoming on Shi Yan's face, displaying an extreme passion. The beautiful woman's rounded butts were vehemently wriggling on his thighs, which increased his pleasure much more. While struggling, her firm butts moved from side to side, rubbing his thighs, which inflamed the beast's lustful desire inside him. He nearly couldn't control himself and wanted to occupy her right away. After Xia Xinyan's butts had wiggled for a while, her face was so red as if it was about to bleed. Her translucent eyes were flooded with romantic interests, glistening like pearls, which was incredibly mesmerizing. "Why do you stop moving?" Shi Yin whispered into her ears, teasing her. "The more you struggle, the more pleasure I have. Why don't you continue?" "Such a scoundrel." Xia Xinyan quietly gritted her teeth. She slightly leaned her body forward to avoid his teasing and preventing his mouth from touching her. "You are mine." Shi Yin suddenly lowered his tone, uttering some words which sounded like a sincere truth. Shi Yan's big arms embraced her body and then forcefully pulled it towards him, placing her fragrant back against his chest. He then defiantly kissed on her long white neck. She slightly shivered as if there was an electric current running all over her body. Her mind and her body were numb with no strength left as her elegant face became dazed. "Please, don't," she chirped unconsciously. Her powerless body leaned against his chest. The body's strength seemed to disappear gradually. Shi Yin ignored it. His tongue, like a small snake, happily wandered on her reddened, silky white neck. The pleasure was surging up more and more while the flame inside his eyes deflagrated. Don't do it." Xia Xinyan's body was totally flabby. In her struggle and confusion, the longingness was somehow exposed, but she was still weakly resisting it. Shi Yin still ignored it. His hand placing on her belly was slowly moving up, grabbing the round-up mountain there. Once his hand had grabbed that firm round breast, Shi Yan's brain was violently agitated. As his body's heat increased 10 more times, his breath also became heavier. Her charming body suddenly trembled. Her beautiful eyes flared up a horrific light. She instantly used all of her strength to escape from his embrace, flying straight up to the sky. Under the cool moonlight, her eyes were glistening with water, and her face was terrifying red that could even frighten other people. She resentfully looked down at the scoundrel below, angrily staring at his private. Shi Yin regained his consciousness, looked at the erection between his legs. He then giggled and shamelessly said, "That's a normal reaction, just a normal reaction. You are even more perverse than I have imagined." While gritting her teeth, she goggled, gazing at him. Her usual leisure and elegance had totally vanished. Her body was now so appealing that could drive men crazy. She said with a blushing face, "I am not well prepared yet. Your mind is full of bad things. I need to consider more." Shi Yin slightly burst into laughing, then spoke up. "Haven't you ever said that if I could defeat you, you would follow me? Have you defeated me yet?" The beautiful woman said with a faint smile. "Try me." Shi Yin revealed a smile while standing up. His natural imposing body emitted a mighty aura when all kinds of powers inside his body massively spread out. He said, "Little beauty, it seems that I have to win to let you be convinced. If so, let me give you a lesson then." As soon as finishing his words, he flew up to the sky like a lance. Like lightning tearing off the sky, he quickly darted beside Xia Xinyan in a blink. Dozens of beams of sparkling light span around his fingers, turning into a net that pounced upon Xia Xinyan. More dangerous than before indeed. The beautiful woman revealed a smile, slightly nodding. She deliberately clasped her hands in front of her chest, then abruptly separated them. Many green lotuses suddenly discharged from her palms. Each lotus had both big and small petals. The light which was revolving inside the lotus was like a gem under the sunlight. The lotuses adjoined with each other one by one, forming a bigger green lotus. The net of light, which had been created from the condensation of Shi Yan's profound qi, directly collided with that room-sized green lotus, but was then struck down into pieces by that powerful lotus. Without waiting for his reaction, the pistil of the lotus opened up like a big mouth swallowing him. In a short moment, his body was covered by many lotuses. Tens of thousands of streams of strange fresh energy were binding around his body like a rope. He looked like being confined inside the pistil of a huge green lotus. Although he tried struggling hard, he couldn't get rid of that huge lotus which was formed by many different small lotuses. The green lotus gradually pushed down, binding him, then brought him out and drowned him in the sea. Splash! As soon as Shi Yan's body entirely sank into the sea, it slightly trembled. That green lotus energy wrapping around him was keeping him away from the seawater outside, but the energy inside the lotus was still increasing. Shi Yan then quietly used the power of the rampage, the ice-cold flame, the 10,000-year earth flame, the profound qi inside his body, and his stiffened muscles to wipe out the lotus's strength that was chaining his entire body. The beautiful woman's charming face turned pale a little bit. Her perfect body slowly descended. While deliberately hovering around in the air 3 meters away from the top of his head, she spoke up with a smile. "Gu, you still can't defeat me yet." Shi Yan shook his head while smiling and saying, "I remember the covenant at the beginning is not like this. You have used the reincarnation martial spirit to enter the sky realm directly. Of course, I couldn't win. If you don't use the reincarnation martial spirit, only base on your true cultivation base of the third sky of the earth realm, it is not too difficult for me to defeat you." Xia Xinyan mischievously smiled, exposing her glamour. She then imitated his words. "Girls are like that. God has given them the stubbornness. Is it so?" Shi Yan was as mute as a fish. "All right, I don't play with you anymore. If it continues like this, you will get injured for real." Xia Xinyan slowly took a deep breath. Her white hands slightly separated. The green lotus that was wrapping around Shi Yan's body opened instantly, turning into different small lotuses, massively flying out and then disappeared into her palms. "You will not encounter any side effects when using the reincarnation martial spirit?" Shi Yan suddenly said. "Maybe." Xia Xinyan retrieved the green lotus, then sat down again on the big green stone, swinging her long legs while the flap of her clothes was fluttering. "I should not use it for so long. Otherwise, I might suffer the side effect. Anyway, the reincarnation martial spirit is much more stable than before. It's already very good. You have had a big progress after many years." Shi Yan was soaking wet, walking over from the sea, then sat down next to her and held her hands once again. Xia Xinyan threw a glance at him, implicating that he should not mess things up again, then said with a low tone, "Being able to have the current accomplishment should be probably related to the spiritual power that you have sent into my brain before. Honestly speaking, if I haven't gone through those things, I wouldn't be able to reach the current realm." After a short pause, she continued, "I haven't entered the nirvana realm yet because I haven't condensed enough the profound qi. Regarding the realm, due to the characteristic of the reincarnation martial spirit, I have never worried about it. In half a month max, I certainly can enter the nirvana realm. Presently, I can vaguely feel that the spiritual power can somehow help me complete the transformation of the sea of consciousness." "Wonderful," Shi Yan sincerely said. "Thank you." Xia Xinyan turned her head around looking at him and gently said. Shi Yan dragged a mischievous smile out of the corner of his mouth. "I don't care when you thank me just in words. If you really want to thank me, give me a kiss." Her beautiful face blushed again. She didn't reply while keeping her head bowed. After a long while, when Shi Yan was about to give up the intention, she suddenly moved closer, and her pink lips like the petals of the cherry blossom kissed on his left cheek as fast as the electricity. She then stood up, embarrassedly turned her back toward him, walking away while mumbling, "I really shouldn't be together with you for so long. The longer I stay with you, the better chance this scoundrel will occupy everything of mine. Such a complete pervert. That year, in a brothel, while I was unconscious, you surely didn't act decently." "Hee, you understand me so well indeed." Shi Yan revealed a satisfactory smile while standing up. He remembered the things in the past and then said without being ashamed, In the brothel, I used to kiss you. You just didn't know it. If I had known it, I would have already killed you. The beautiful woman turned her head around, tightly closing her hands, gesticulating for a while. But she wasn't really angry, as if she had soon known that he would have that kind of answer. If you had killed me that time, how could you realize my good features? Yin laughed out loud and leaped up like a panther. He then reappeared next to her just in a blink, naturally holding her hand, and said, "Human life is miraculous. That year, you had a high and noble status, like an untouchable angle in the sky, which brought people the inferiority without daring to pursue you. By that time, although I already wanted to have you for myself, I didn't think I could do it. You were just a beautiful, ambiguous dream to me. Right now, you are not qualified enough to pursue me yet." Xiaoxinyan glanced at him with a smile and said, "Wait until you enter the Sky Realm and be able to defeat me. I will agree to let you have me." Yan's face was agitated. He asked, "Your words are true?"
Sure.
Her eyes were sparkling and mesmerizing. Her beautiful smile appeared at the corner of her mouth. "I will not let you wait for long." Yan laughed out loud and said with his confidence, "I have never felt this confident like right now. The immense, endless sea will spread out the legend of mine sooner or later. After my disappearance, the legend about me will not be forgotten with time." As Xiaoxinyan was bewildered looking at that man who was arrogantly blustering, her heart was vibrating non-stop. She felt a little bit dizzy when hearing those boasting words. The arrogance and ambition of a man before being capable of doing it was somehow a fatal poison that attracted women. Chapter 318. Understandable. Chapter 318. Understandable. Editor. Yin took Xia Shunchuan and Xiaoxinyan to the manor where the three people of Etian Mo's group were temporarily lodging. After Xia Shunchuan had walked around the manor, he secretly cursed the three gods sect that they were partial, treating him unfavorably. Everything in this manor was much better than in his accommodation. When Xia Shunchuan met Etian Mo, Yimeng, and Kaba, he was immediately astonished seeing them for the first time. Although the three of Etian Mo's group didn't disclose any powerful aura of the God Realm warriors, being the master of a family, Xia Shunchuan could easily realize the true cultivation base of those three. Like an obvious thing, Xia Shunchuan had realized that their cultivation base should probably reach the God Realm. Three God Realm warriors. Xia Shunchuan kept being suspicious, didn't know what kind of relation between them and Yin was. As Etian Mo didn't want to frighten other people, he didn't call Yin master in front of others. However, one could still figure something out if noticing their commotions. Xia Shunchuan was a cunning old man. He had already figured out the situation and was constantly lavish with his praises. From those three people, Xia Shunchuan knew that Yin had a very high position in their hearts. Until this instant, he realized why the three gods sect was giving Yin such a distinguished treat like this. Compared with these three God Realm warriors, even the three gods sect couldn't have this kind of powerful forces. The three God Realm warriors followed Yin to come here and even obeyed his orders. Needless to say, everyone could understand what it meant. Xia Shunchuan secretly decided that regardless how the future would be, he had to cling onto Yin tightly, absolutely wouldn't betray him. Although he was still young and had just been in the Endless Sea for 5 years, after the Yang family had retreated, he still seduced the hearts of the three people of Etian Mo's group without the Yang family's support. Yin had proved his own ability. Yin arranged the accommodation a little bit. He told Xia Shunchuan that this manor was very spacious with many chambers, so he could freely go around and find a place for himself to rest. Xia Shunchuan beamed a smile and then left without informing his granddaughter. As soon as Xia Shunchuan had left, Yin was about to ask the three people of Etian Mo's group to see how many people had come here while he had been absent. However, Chao Zhilan unexpectedly returned with her lustrous appearance. She was wearing a blue dress. Her body was gentle and slender. The crystal adornments attached to the flap of her dress were producing a tinkling melody that was very pleasant to people's ears. Her charming face wore a faint smile which agitated other people's hearts. This pretty woman seemed to forget completely what had happened at the hot spring. She was casually walking in. She rolled her eyes and then stopped on Xia Xinyan's body. The smile at the corner of her mouth was even broader. Xia Xinyan's eyebrows arched while she slightly harumphed, gazed straight at her without any fears. The beauty of each of these two women was in no way inferior to the other one, and their auras were equivalent. Both of them possessed the mesmerizing appearances that all the males were longing days and nights, even in their dreams. In the pearly radiant room, their bewitching beauty seemed to overwhelm all the pearls and gems. Even Shi Yin also had to compliment their elegance and beauty secretly. The beautiful eyes of the two beautiful girls shot out some lights which collided with each other in the air, igniting dangerous fires. Moreover, Chao Zhilan stopped for a while, finding a chair to sit down, ignoring Xia Xinyan's hostile look. She then gave him an affectionate glance and said, "Didn't you say that I am your slave? As I am yours, I obviously have to follow my master. Furthermore, you have placed a formation technique on my body. How can I dare to run away?" Xia Xinyan's beautiful eyes flared up a ray of anger, instantly glanced at Shi Yin with the manner as if she wanted to bring an army to investigate him. "Ah, it's not like what you are thinking." Shi Yin was a little bit disconcerted. He opened his arms and said, "I am innocent. I have never touched her. At first, I kept her because I needed her for something, but then I didn't do anything eventually." Xia Xinyan was still secretly resentful inside, but she no longer showed it on her face. She leisurely walked over and sat down on the left side of Shi Yin, then proactively stretched out her hand holding Shi Yan's hand, placing at the other end of the table. She coldly looked at Chao Zhilan while speaking with a low tone. "As you have admitted your slavery status, you should have a little understanding of being a slave. Bring me a cup of tea." Shi Yin dry coughed while his eyes were strange, thinking to himself that this girl was not just simply laid back. "Bring tea?" Chao Zhilan's face was a little bit shaken as the smile at the corner of her mouth gradually faded away. Her pink lips curled up and sarcastically said, "Since I was little, I have never served tea to anyone, let alone another girl. Not to mention the fact that the Xia family's fame has been written off on the ranking list of the Endless Sea. Even when the Xia family is the most powerful, you are not qualified enough to ask me to do anything. Understand? Haven't you just boasted that you are a slave?" Xia Xinyan squinted. Her closing hands instantly tightened, which made Shi Yin a bit worried. "But not the slave of yours, Xia Xinyan." Chao Zhilan didn't care to look at her but instead picked up a cluster of grapes and attentively peeled them. "That's all right." Xia Xinyan dragged a smile out of the corner of her mouth as if she had already had a plan. She then gently looked at Shi Yin. Her jade-like hands slightly swung while she said, "Shi Yin, can you tell your slave to bring me a cup of tea?" Her eyes were full of lights. She gritted her teeth with the begging and threatening appearance at the same time. "It's simple." Shi Yin burst into laughing while feeling that this scene was quite interesting. His other hand pointed at the left cheek and said to Xia Xinyan, "If you do like what you have done earlier, I will do as your request." "Ha ha ha. Pervert." Her face instantly blushed while she secretly cursed him. She aggressively squeezed Shi Yan's hand, resented that she couldn't crush it into pieces. Chao Zhilan revealed an exciting smile, as if she was very interested in it. She giggled while provokingly looking at Xia Xinyan. "I am looking." Xia Xinyan's face was even reddened. She rampageously gazed at Chao Zhilan, then shifted her eyes looking at Shi Yin with a threatening look. Shi Yin suddenly became joyful as he felt that she was so mesmerizing now. He urged, "Just one kiss. As being a female master, you should be generous." "I think she doesn't dare to do it." Chao Zhilan beautifully smiled and stood up. Her body flashed up and reappeared next to Shi Yin in no time. Under the unbelievable eyes of Xia Xinyan, Chao Zhilan daringly kissed Shi Yin right at the place that Xia Xinyan had kissed him earlier, leaving a faint pink stain on his face. Shi Yin was bewildered like a wooden rooster. Xia Xinyan's countenance instantly changed. "I am an obedient female slave." After kissing him, Chao Zhilan glided away like a cool breeze. Her gentle voice came up from afar, "Master, I'm going to take a shower first. If you have any request, you can always come to see me." In terms of some aspects, I might be better than the Yin-Yang Wonderland's disciples. In the satisfied giggling sounds, her delicate body quietly left in a blink without leaving a trace. After having stepped out of the room, the calm and brave face of Chao Zhilan suddenly blushed. She held her face with her watery eyes while stopping behind the rockwork. Her mind was stirred up, her face was reddened, and she mumbled to herself, "This is the first time I did it. Oh, I might be wrong." Chapter 319, Possessed by Devil. Chapter 319, Possessed by Devil. Editor. The three people of Etian Mo's group had left. Shi Yin was sitting alone in the middle of the room, slightly closing his eyes and being silent like a monk in his meditation. Shi Yin didn't mind about the person that Etian Mo had mentioned, although he had been a little bit astonished. Many high-class warriors from everywhere were gathering on the Sun Island, and some God Realm warriors were among them. When those warriors appeared on the Sun Island at the same time, the island would obviously no longer be peaceful anymore. As he had just come to the Sun Island today, he had already killed several people and had become a star after the fight with Mangu. Heroes from everywhere on the island had already noticed him and been even more interested in the cultivation base of the three people of Etian Mo's group. The Yang family had offended many people in the Endless Sea during their glorious time. As soon as Shi Yin had appeared, he had forcefully made the other forces to pay for what they had done before and intimidated Yu Qin and Gu Shao. In their eyes, this action of his was similar to the previous defiance of the Yang family. Obviously, some people who were hiding in the dark weren't happy with his way of doing things. Thus, the fact that someone couldn't help but take actions was also understandable. As what he had seen, the fact that someone couldn't help but bring the whole army here to question his guilt was something that was likely to happen. He, of course, also believed that no one would be willing to be involved in life and death battles given the current tense situation. Exactly speaking, they would not risk their lives to fight against the three people of Etian Mo's group. After all, the demon dweller's intimidation was still there. Before the demon dweller's menace disappeared, no one would dare to ignore it. Shi Yin didn't care about the current situation as he had nothing in the Endless Sea. If something happened, he could simply dust off his ass and leave. He didn't care about the Endless Sea situation, whether ordinary people lived or died, nor the resources on the island. Leaving the Endless Sea, he still could live a good life like he had had before, let alone the fact that he didn't have much attachment to the Yang family. Without any attachment, he wasn't scared at all. That was why he dared to fish in troubled waters at this critical point of time. The war between the demon dwellers and the high-class warriors of the Endless Sea was just the training for him to gain more valuable experiences that could help him enter the Nirvana realm or even the Sky realm. The special feature of the mystery martial spirit in his body was that it would be improved faster during battles, and the powers that it could absorb would also be bigger. He felt regretful that he couldn't stir up the Endless Sea sooner. The more warriors that fell, the more treasures he would be able to obtain. Seeing from this aspect, he was actually one of the major factors that led the world into complete chaos. Only when he was not scared and had no attachments would he be able to freely do whatever he wanted without having to be responsible for any consequences. Many thoughts zoomed over in his mind. A cold smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. He then closed his eyes and started to meditate. Numerous negative feelings flooded the meridians inside his body. Under the effect of the mystery martial spirit, the aura was running in his meridians with breakneck speed, purifying the dead auras that he had absorbed today and turning them into some kinds of peculiar energies that brought him power. Shi Yin was quietly sensing them, being immersed in himself to understand the strange transformation in his body. Although there were still two kinds of chaotic negative auras penetrating, they were in the range that he could bear. His mind maintained to be in the conscious state at all times, without having any signs of losing his mind. It seems that the spiritual chi of other people was not enough for me to use, Shi Yin thought to himself. The people who had died today were only at the Earth realm and the disaster realm. After their spiritual chi had been absorbed, the purification speed in Shi Yin's meridians was significantly faster. That was also why the negative auras couldn't have affected him much. Entering the peak Earth realm, Whether it was his mental state or his body's extreme endurance level, both had a huge breakthrough. At this realm, his body could now endure more of the counterattacks. While Shi Yin was quietly evaluating and sensing the transformation inside his body, his spirit was very calm as his sea of consciousness was restful without surging up. Not long after that, those familiar peculiar energies suddenly flowed out of his meridians. Being in shock, he quickly controlled that peculiar power and was conducting it to the beam of profound chi light in his body. During this time, he always paid attention to the beam of profound chi light on his belly. In that marvelous world, the profound chi had an unusual shape of an ancient tree piercing through the sky while its branches and leaves were full of profound chi and energy, becoming more and more luxuriant. He vaguely speculated that when the profound chi gathered more and more, this ancient tree started to have miraculous transformations in every 15 minutes. He even recognized that when the ancient profound chi tree had the transformation was also the point of time when he would break through to the nirvana realm. Therefore, he had been continuing condensing the profound chi in the past few days, gathering more of the sky and earth aura to pour in. Needless to say, the peculiar power inside the meridians in his entire body was extremely useful. It helped the profound chi grow. Thanks to this peculiar energy, his profound chi had rocketed several times. He believed that if he could conduct this energy that was staying hidden in his meridians into the ancient profound chi tree, that this ancient profound chi tree would have some critical transformations. The thing that he wanted the most was to pour this peculiar energy into the star martial spirit on his chest. However, it was useless to pour that peculiar energy into the star martial spirit before knowing the secrets of the star martial spirit. His mind flickered. He immediately activated the soul consciousness and hid it in the moving mystical flows of power, in an attempt to control and conduct them to the beam of profound chi light in his belly. However, when he started doing that, his mind was suddenly agitated. Something was moving in his sea of consciousness. This kind of vibration made his mind tremble. The muscles on his body were shrinking. He suddenly fell off the chair amid the room while his body kept shaking violently and made it look like he was having a seizure. It was extremely strange. In the sea of consciousness, the host soul was spreading out numerous soul fibers that were connecting with the sea of consciousness to control its vibrations. While his mind was empty, a miraculous illusion, which was like as if he was floating in the cloud, suddenly appeared, drifting about along with the howling wind. The chaotic thoughts in his brain seemed to have completely been wiped out. He didn't think of anything as it seemed that he was now entering some kind of marvelous realm. His body was subconsciously shaking. Following this tremor, the mystical strength that came forth from the meridians in his entire body turned into countless tiny dots of light and was slowly running to his right arm. His mind was as empty as the ethereal realm. He knew the moving direction of this mystical energy flow, but he couldn't have any reactions. At this moment, his body didn't seem to belong to him anymore. His consciousness could no longer control his body, and the ability to control his body seemed to have temporarily been captured by different kinds of invisible energies. All of the mystical energies that were spreading out from his meridians were now quickly flowing towards his right arm. When he assumed that the transformation of his body was about to end, a stream of mystical power pierced into the beam of the profound chi light and was now entering the ancient tree that had been created by the condensation of the profound chi. Boom! The mystical strength seemed to burn numerous splendid lights. Instantly, the luxuriant ancient profound chi tree radiated many glittering lights which were like thousands of tiny rivers, then spread out of the tree trunk altogether and disappeared into the vessels on his belly. More than thousands of sparkling profound chi fibers massively flew out, flooding towards his right arm. Shi Yin was going through some kind of miraculous transformation that was quietly happening. The profound chi of his entire body then spread out from his belly. The trunk of that ancient tree gradually shrank, slowly became gloomy, and eventually disappeared. The sparkling profound chi from that ancient tree trunk turned into thousands of rays that were flowing along his vessels towards his right arm, blending with the mystical energy inside there, and then pouring into the muscles of his right arm. The flesh in his muscles vibrated non-stop. The profound chi and the mystical power constantly poured in and fused with each other. That vibration had been spreading all over his body. 639 muscles on his body also seemed to be shaking, which gave him the feeling that numerous currents of electricity were running through his body. His entire right arm suddenly shot out dark purple rays, which were getting more illuminant together with the vibrations of his muscles. As the profound chi of the entire body had been completely drained, the light of the profound chi on his belly also became gloomier. The ancient profound chi tree had vanished as if it had returned to the nihility. It would require another condensation of the profound chi to appear again. The profound chi and the mystical energy fused with each other and then completely disappeared into his right arm's flesh. This fusion filled his muscles with full of energy that could make the other people trembling in fear. His entire body was agitated while the amplitude of the vibrations was getting bigger. He gesticulated in the middle of the room as if he was unconsciously possessed by the devil without knowing what it is that he was doing. Boom! An explosion came up in his head. His wriggling body suddenly ceased, as if it was being controlled by the immobilized body technique. Although his body was motionless, it still maintained the peculiar pose. At this moment, his brain didn't have any thoughts left. Only his right arm was still dazzling and was quietly going through some peculiar transformation. Dawn was coming. The figures of two people quarreling emerged outside the manor. Xia Xinyan was sitting in the garden since earlier. As soon as seeing those two vacillated in front of the gate, she couldn't help but stand up with a forced smile. She looked at them from afar with her knitted eyebrows, then asked, "What are you coming here for?" "Uh-huh." Yi Zhangfeng went inside while pointing at the gate guards and speaking. "I told them I know you guys, so they let us in." Lin Yaqin followed him unceremoniously. "Why are you here?" Xia Xinyan asked again. "The meeting won't start until tomorrow. There is the busiest auction fair today, which is organized by the Spirit Treasure Wonderland after having the permission of the Three Gods sect. It is said that there will be many extraordinary spirit treasures being displayed in the auction fair. I want to ask Shi Yin to accompany us, and also I want to discuss something with him." Yi Zhangfeng giggled and said. After going around in the manor, Lin Yaqin said with astonishment, "This place is much better than ours. If I knew you were here, I would have come here last night. I will tell Shi Yin about this. We will come and stay here tonight." Yi Zhangfeng said with a smile. Lin Yaqin nodded, implicating that it was how it should be. In a small, charming pavilion staying hidden in the forest, the window on the third story suddenly opened. Chao Zhilan opened up her arms. Her waist bent backwards like a willow while her beautiful breasts were thrusting out. "Oh!" Lin Yaqin shouted with surprise, as if she had just found a new continent. She pointed towards Chao Zhilan from a distance and said, "Why is she here?" Yi Zhangfeng was a little bit bewildered before bursting into a strange laughter, constantly nodding and complimenting. "This little rascal Shi Yin is really dangerous. I admire him now." Xia Xinyan's face was not good, as her cold eyes shifted over there and asked, "Do you know her?" "No, we don't." Yi Zhangfeng shook his head. "We just met her yesterday." Lin Yaqin looked toward there, then looked at Xia Xinyan. As she seemed to understand something, she clapped her hands while talking with a big smile. "I know. You two are competing for a man? That is interesting." Xia Xinyan was embarrassed, angrily staring at her. "Where is Shi Yin?" Yi Zhangfeng asked. Don no. As her rage hadn't gone yet, she was still crabby when mentioning about Shi Yin. Perhaps he will be going out soon? After hearing that, Yi Zhangfeng and Lin Yaqin didn't pay much attention. They talked to her while waiting. In the big room, the three people Etian Mo, Yiming, and Kaba were looking at Shi Yin, who was motionlessly and unconsciously lying down on the ground with somber faces. "What happened?" Kaba's face was confused. "We were constantly vigilant last night. We didn't detect anyone nor any souls breaking in. How come it is like this?" "Oldie, did you find something abnormal last night?" Yiming asked with a worried face. "No." Etianimo shook his head while speaking with a heavy voice. "Only someone who has a higher realm than ours could cross our soul defensive formation. Otherwise, there is no way that we couldn't detect anyone. But There shouldn't be anyone with that level on this island. So, how about this? Kaba asked with fear. Perhaps something happened while he was cultivating. Etianimo had a closer look at Yin, quietly urging his soul consciousness for a while before speaking. It's all right. The sea of consciousness of Master is totally normal. Even the host soul is safe. It is just that the host soul seems to be stuck in some kind of miraculous realm, which brings people an uncatchable feeling of emptiness. That might be some kind of cultivation technique. Yimeng couldn't help but walk forward, stretched out his hand placing on Yan's chest, launching the power to check a little bit. He then said with the unchanged face, "The profound chi has completely vanished." What? At this moment, Etianmo's and Kaba's faces changed dramatically. They hurriedly walked over to check and realized that his profound chi had truly died out mystically. How come? The three of them exchanged glances with complicated faces, didn't know how to handle this matter. Is it because he had fought with someone for the whole night yesterday that consumed all of his profound chi? Yimeng said with uncertainty, while helplessly rubbing his head. In this spacious place, if he had fought with someone, how come we didn't know it? Etianimo coldly harumphed and took a deep breath. His soul continued searching further, slowly going into the host soul inside Yan's sea of consciousness. However, as soon as his soul entered Yan's sea of consciousness, the five devils who seemed to have been originally in a deep sleep suddenly leaped up altogether. The five flows of devilish auras burst out from the five devils' bodies. In the middle of many horrendous waves of souls that could wrench the other people's hearts, the five devils stormed towards Etianmo's soul which had just entered. Etianmo's face quickly changed. He hastily retrieved his soul consciousness. Chapter 320, Investigating. Chapter 320, Investigating. Editor. As soon as Etianimo had retrieved his soul, the five devils stopped chasing after it. They didn't get out of the sea of consciousness and restfully stayed inside. Yin still maintained his strange, motionless posture, as if he was in some sort of a trance. Although his sea of consciousness was still vibrating, his breath was normal. Except for the fact that all of his profound chi had been entirely lost, even though his body didn't have any abnormalities. Etianmo's face displayed a little surprise and became heavier after having retrieved his soul. How was it? Kaba and Yimeng asked at the same time with suspicious faces. There are some problems. Etianimo stretched his hand, placing it on Yan's hand, transmitting the profound chi into his body. The profound chi, like sensitive, subtle fibers, slowly flew around inside Yan's vessels within his chest and gradually spread out all over his body. However, when Etianmo's profound chi circulated to Yan's right arm, it encountered layer upon layers of obstacles. The profound chi that he had released was somehow being blocked by numerous walls, making it impossible to penetrate inside. Etianmo's profound chi continued being transmitted, groping along the vessels to spread out all over Yan's body. Except for his right arm, other places inside his body was ventilated and uncluttered. As he had figured this out, Etianimo thought for a while before continuing transmitting several more of the profound chi fibers toward Yan's right arm. 7 flows of the profound chi scattered and busted in the invisible walls at the same time. Boom! A deep explosive sound reverberated from inside Yan's arm. The dark purple lights were moving on his arm. In that strange vibration, Etianmo's profound chi that had just stormed and exploded and was completely swallowed up, leaving no trace. Yan's arm shot out a flow of peculiar aura toward Etianmo's hand. Etianmo's face changed in fear. He quickly retracted his hand and slightly shouted, "It's strain." Yimeng and Kaba was astounded and urgently asked, "Oldie, what happened?" "Nothing." Etianimo released a sigh and helplessly said, "It appears that I couldn't wake Master up. I don't know why his current symptom is similar to possessed by the devil. However, after thinking more carefully, it doesn't seem right. Perhaps due to some secret technique cultivation, he has turned to be like this." After listening to Etianimo, Yimeng and Kaba didn't say anything further. Yiming's and Kaba's knowledge of the different kinds of forces were not as profound as Etian Mo's. Thus, they knew that they couldn't really help or give any input. The three of them were contemplating, looking at Shi Yin with their knitted eyebrows. They felt helpless right now as they had no solution for this situation. Xia Xinyan, Yi Zhangfeng, and Lin Yiqi had been waiting for Shi Yin for a long time but still didn't see Shi Yin show up yet. Thus, they couldn't help but go and look for him. As soon as they entered the room, seeing Shi Yin's stiff body on the ground, they all screamed out terrifyingly. The three people of Etian Mo stood around Shi Yin, preventing anyone from coming closer. Even Xia Xinyan was stopped as well. Xia Shenchuan also arrived right after he had been informed about this. He strangely looked at Shi Yin before looking at the three people who were standing around him while asking suspiciously, "What happened?" Yi Zhangfeng, Lin Yiqi, and Chao Zhilan were also full of doubts. Shi Yin had been still fine the previous day. How could he have become like this just after one night? No one could explain. We came here this morning and had found him in this unconscious state. It was like possessed by devil state. After coldly harumphing, Etian Mo told them the truth about what had happened. I have searched Master's soul and detected nothing abnormal except that the profound qi of his entire body seems to have been completely drained. It is like he has consumed all of his strength after fighting with someone. How is it possible? Xia Shenchuan was surprised. This place was very quiet last night. There was no fight for sure. Is it true that he was possessed by the devil? Although everyone was worried, they were not very anxious as they saw that Shi Yin was still breathing, and his heartbeat was still normal. However, it was certainly not a good thing if he couldn't wake up. As Etian Mo had admitted his helplessness, everyone else also kept their mouths shut. Let me try. After contemplating for a while, Yi Zhangfeng suddenly spoke up. Although I don't know what happened to him, with my knowledge of the possessed by the devil state, perhaps I can figure out something. Etian Mo tightly knitted his eyebrows. Xia Shengchuan's eyebrows were also slamming together. Everyone knew that Shi Yin and Yi Zhangfeng met each other not that long ago, and thus they couldn't be considered as having a close relationship. If Yi Zhangfeng had some wicked intentions and wanted to take this chance to kill Shi Yin would have no other ways except for death. No one had nodded yet as everyone was carefully considering it. Let him try. As we have many people, even if he has bad intentions, he will not be able to do it. At the critical point of time, Xia Xinyan spoke up, it is still better than wasting time. If Shi Yin is really in the possessed by the devil state, we have to come up with a solution quickly. Is this guy really from the dark magnetic Noxious mist? Etian Mo asked Xia Shenchuan after considering for a while. The previous night, the three people of Etian Mo's group had had some talks with Xia Shenchuan and gotten some information related to Yi Zhangfeng. The three of them especially paid attention to the centerland of the Grace mainland behind the dark magnetic Noxious mist. From the talk with Xia Shenchuan, Etian Mo had known that Xia Shenchuan was the master of the Xia family, and he had also had a feeling that Xia Shenchuan could have provided him with some useful information. During the conversation with the three people of Etian Mo's group, Xia Shenchuan had been surprised as well, as he had remembered the fact that Yi Zhangfeng and Lin Yiqi had suddenly appeared out of nowhere. He had told Etian Mo what he knew. The three people of Etian Mo's group clearly paid close attention to this. They had asked many questions about Yi Zhangfeng and even had the intention that they would have had to question Yi Zhangfeng more in person later. That's right. He has said it himself. Xia Shengchuan nodded. The eyes of the three leaders of the demonic sound clan, Etian Mo, Yiming, and Kaba brightened up, simultaneously looking at Yi Zhangfeng. Does the center of the Grace mainland have a place whose name is the Heavening Ancient Mound? Etian Mo took a deep breath before asking. Yi Zhangfeng's and Lin Yiqi's faces changed dramatically. You know about the Heavening Ancient Mound? A heaven light seemed to flare up in Yi Zhangfeng's eyes. The Heavening Ancient Mound is one of the three dead territories. It is very famous as well as mystical. It has been said that the Heavening Ancient Mound has always been sealed and that no one could enter. How could you know of that place? After the three people of Etian Mo's group threw him a quick look, they quietly nodded, indicating that they had confirmed Yi Zhangfeng's identity. You can try now. Don't do anything stupid. Etianimo didn't reply to Zhangfeng's question. Instead, he just gave a narrow access and told Yi Zhangfeng, be careful. Don't use the soul to approach his sea of consciousness. Otherwise, the soul that you release will not be able to come back. Moreover, the abnormal thing in his body was on his right arm. If you want to search, aim for that target. Yi Zhangfeng gazed at him and asked again, how can you know about the Heavening Ancient Mound? From the ancestors' scripture, Etianimo replied after contemplating for a while. Yi Zhangfeng's eyes brightened, carefully looking at the three of them. He seemed to have figured out something, but he didn't say anything further. He walked over and stayed next to Shi Yan. After that, he stretched out his hand holding Shi Yan's arm. A fireball suddenly shot out from Yi Zhangfeng's palm. The flames were like many scales covering his palm and the back of his hand. In just a blink, Yi Zhangfeng's hand now looked like it was wearing a yellow glove. The flames kept dancing non-stop as if there was a life joyfully cheering on his hand. The faces of the three people of Etianmo's group turned chalky white. They couldn't help but take a few steps backward and hoarsely screamed out loud with astonishment, Heaven Flame. The three people Chao Jilan, Xia Xinyan, and Xia Shunchuan also quickly moved backwards in shock as they were scared that the Heaven Flame would touch them. No worries, I can perfectly control this Heaven Flame. I won't let its heat affect anyone. The faces of the three leaders of the demonic Sound Clan were not quite good. They urgently used their powers to check and realized that there was no heating aura of the Heaven Flame in the room. They were secretly surprised and were strangely looking at Yi Zhangfeng. The Heaven Flame's heat was incredibly terrifying, being able to release the Heaven Flame and oppress all of its aura at the same time. Yi Zhangfeng had clearly reached the exceptionally marvelous realm in using the Heaven Flame. They understood that Yi Zhangfeng was much better than Shi Yan in terms of using and controlling the Heaven Flame. Chao Jilan was frightened. Her beautiful eyes were full of astonishment while she secretly guessed Yi Zhangfeng's status. On the contrary, as Xia Shunchuan and Xia Xinyan had already known Yi Zhangfeng's identity, as well as the mystery of the dark magnetic Noxious mist, they were not too surprised. Under everyone's attentive looks, Yi Zhangfeng closed his eyes, and several sparkling drops of water appeared on his white face that was even more beautiful than a girl's. His hand, which was holding Shi Yan's arm, was also slightly trembling, as if he was consuming a big amount of power. Lin Yiqi was also surprised and a little bit puzzled when seeing Yi Zhangfeng being this exhausted. She clearly knew Yi Zhangfeng's ability more than anyone else. She thought that Yi Zhangfeng shouldn't have wasted too much strength with Shi Yan's strange, possessed by the devil's state. Instead, he only needed to sense a little to roughly know the current situation. However, she was a little bit shocked when seeing Yi Zhangfeng's reaction. She also looked at Shi Yan out of curiosity. More sweat had appeared on Yi Zhangfeng's face as he became more somber. He was still closing his eyes without saying anything. No one knew whether he had figured something out or not. In the room, everyone was silent, looking at Yi Zhangfeng and Shi Yan's abnormal state. Etianmo's face changed all of a sudden. He lifted his face looking up and said with a cold face, "That guy is here again." Yiming's and Kaba's eyes became chillingly cold. They quickly sat down, releasing their souls to form a soul defensive formation which prevented that guy from penetrating. You guys shouldn't use the soul consciousness nor get out of this circle. Etianmo's face was severely serious. His 5 fingers shot out many peculiar beams of light, creating a dome of light on the ground covering everyone inside of it. After finishing the arrangement, Etianimo also sat down, closed his eyes, preparing to fight against the enemy. Chapter 321. The Mutant Martial Spirit. Chapter 321. The Mutant Martial Spirit. Editor. In the room, the 3 people of Etianmo's group were sitting in 3 different directions surrounding Shi Yan. Yi Zhangfeng was in the middle, and the other people were beside him, remaining alerted with somber faces. Chao Jilan and Xia Xinyan stopped opposing each other. Instead, they both raised their heads up looking toward the sky and were carefully watching around. Only Lin Yiqi was leisurely. She took out a purple headscarf on which the image of clouds was embroidered. The cloud seemed to have several kinds of plants embroidered inside it as well. Putting the headscarf on, Lin Yiqi was even more comfortable, deliberately looking east to west. As soon as she put on the headscarf, the clouds on it started moving slowly, and the plants inside the clouds began to grow miraculously and quickly spread out the entire headscarf in a blink. Those plants rapidly emitted a strange flow of spiritual power that produced many peculiar circles of light, wrapping around Lin Yiqi's head and eventually covering her entire body. Those circles of light swayed and wiggled before flying up to the sky. They then stopped at the place where the sole defensive formation of the three people of Tian Mo's group had condensed earlier. Sacred Level Secret Treasure. Chao Zilan's beautiful face was full of astonishment while she was glancing at the purple headscarf on Lin Yiqi's head. She said with a gentle voice, "It is also the Sacred Level Secret Treasure of the Soul Defensive type. It is really surprising indeed." Xia Xinyan's and Xia Shenchuan's eyes were glowing while they quietly nodded their heads. No wonder why this girl didn't seem to worry at all. It turned out that she had the Sacred Level Secret Treasure of the Soul Defensive type. She obviously didn't need to be worried at all when holding that kind of treasure in her hand. There were a few of the Sacred Level Secret Treasures in the Endless Sea, and all of them were in the hands of the most powerful forces of the Endless Sea. The Sacred Level Secret Treasures was always the most precious value of each sect. It could sometimes be even more valuable than the God Realm warriors themselves. All of the Sacred Level Secret Treasures were in the God Realm warriors' hands, and only the God Realm warriors were able to make the most use of those treasures' powers, as well as protecting and keeping them safe. The Sacred Level Secret Treasure could be transmitted throughout many generations. It was seemingly unable to be destroyed, and thus, its value could be sometimes higher than that of the God Realm warriors. Currently, although Lin Yiqi was still ranked at the peak Earth Realm, she already possessed a Sacred Level Secret Treasure. Xia Shenchuan and Chao Zilan were terrified when they kept thinking about this. They couldn't imagine how powerful her old master's ability could be. Xia Xinyan was certain that the person who offered a Sacred Level Secret Treasure to another one was definitely an extremely powerful one. Creak, creak, creak. Some peculiar sounds came up from the roof of the house. Everyone raised their heads up and realized that the roof was being oppressed by layer upon layer of ripples and would explode soon. The dazzling light suddenly flared up while different kinds of soul powers intertwined in the air, which brought other people a feeling that those souls were about to break. It was terrifying. Even Xia Xinyan and Chao Zilan, the future masters of the Endless Sea, didn't seem to be able to endure it. Under the waves of energy, the buzzing noise resounded in their heads that seemed like it was going to explode very soon. That was still taking place given the situation where the three people of Tian Mo's group had already set up the Soul Defensive Formation. If the Soul Defensive Formation had been created by the unity of the three people of Tian Mo's group above their heads, the people under that formation should have been crushed by that tremendous soul power until their souls scattered and perished. Until now, only Lin Yiqi was unharmed. With the effects of the purple headscarf, she wasn't affected at all. She kept shifting her eyes from here to there, even showed a little of the boringness as if she didn't know what was happening above their heads. The faces of the three people of Tian Mo's group were terrifyingly somber. Their minds had never been as concentrated as this moment. With their soul cultivation realm, they certainly would not lose to this intruder in a one-on-one battle. Tian Mo could even be a little bit stronger. However, they had to be more careful this time as there were many people in the room. The purpose of the three of them was not only to resist the enemy's soul attacks, but also to assure the other people's safety, which was their number one priority. That was why they were encumbered and had to spare a part of their soul powers to arrange many layers of the soul defense to protect Shi Yin and the others from being harmed. Because they had used the majority of their powers in defense, they obviously couldn't concentrate all of their soul powers to launch any other kinds of powerful attacks. Boom! The roof of the house exploded. In the middle of 5 colored soul dots of light, many peculiar light circles from Lin Yiqi's headscarf suddenly condensed into an entity and then turned into thin curtains of light that restrained the soul powers striking from above. Leave the defense to me. You guys focus on dealing with that fellow. Lin Yiqi was a little impatient. She couldn't help but shout. No worries. He won't be able to break my sacred level secret treasure. You can comfortably combine all of your powers to fight. The eyebrows of the three of them slightly arched, which indicated that they were about to launch the full power attacks. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Numerous rays appeared. Tens of thousands of light soul beams twisted together and crushed the opponent's soul in just a few seconds. Scattering soul dots of light which resulted from their fight were blocked by the curtains of light that had been emitted from Lin Yaqi's headscarf. Many flows of soul aura quickly disappeared. Lin Yachi raised her head up looking towards the sky for a while before retrieving her headscarf and mumbling, "That stealthy bastard is annoying. He deserves bad luck." Phew. Etionimo slightly exhaled, slowly opened his eyes, and said with a somber look, "His soul got injured this time. It will not recover in a short time. He probably won't dare to come here again." Yimeng and Kaba opened their eyes wide with elated faces and kept on grinning. The cultivation base of those three people was not inferior to that of the opponent. If it weren't because they had been distracted in protecting the other people, that fellow wouldn't have dared to break in. Even if the fellow had calculated it by hook, he would have never expected Lin Yachi to be present here, and more importantly that she had the peculiar sacred level secret treasure. Thanks to this secret treasure, Lin Yachi had freed the three people of Etionmo's group from the encumbrance, helping them in being able to launch their full power attacks and seriously harm the opponent. Boom! While everyone was excited, the purple light on Shi Yan's right arm noisily exploded all of a sudden. The violently intense lights created many flows of power like ocean waves that massively spread out with the tremendous aura that could even wash mountains away. Yi Zhangfeng's skinny body was struck away, breaking through 3 layers of walls before falling in the middle of the garden. At the same time, Shi Yan's sea of consciousness was suddenly shaken. His host's soul slightly trembled. He also opened his eyes. Shi Yan's eyes were somehow in a daze, looking at the people surrounding him. He asked with astonishment, "What are you guys doing?" Korf korf. In the middle of the garden, Yi Zhangfeng constantly dry-coughed before standing up. His face was pale with a trickle of blood gushing out from the corner of his mouth. He took the pellet while walking over and miserably speaking, "Shi Yan, you've made me injured. You have to be responsible for this." Lin Yaqin astonishingly asked while her face changed dramatically, "Little Bai, are you injured?" Yi Zhangfeng awkwardly nodded. "Ha ha ha, interesting." Lin Yachi wasn't worried. Instead, she clapped her hands and gloatingly said, "That's fantastic. It's not easy to see you get injured. It is interesting when you are injured, although you have many secret treasures on your body. Little rascal, you are dangerous indeed. You could even get Little Bai injured. Good, very good. Your ability seems to have proved that you are qualified enough to fight against a Nirvana Realm warrior. As far as I have known, the first sky of the Nirvana Realm warrior even has to take risks to be able to harm Little Bai." After hearing what she had just said, other people couldn't help but be surprised, shockingly looking at Shi Yan and then Yi Zhangfeng. According to Lin Yachi, Yi Zhangfeng's ability was even more terrifying than that of a Nirvana Realm warrior. With the Heaven Flame, together with many secret treasures and his shocking ability, this guy was indeed a monster. What happened? Shi Yan knitted his eyebrows. "It is like this." Etionimo seriously told him about what had happened before asking, "What happened to you last night?" "According to your assumption, I have accidentally encountered the possessed by the devil while cultivating." Shi Yan shuddered but remained calm while speaking. While talking, he quietly transmitted the spirit power to his right arm and realized that each muscle fiber in his right arm was flooded with some kind of strange powers. These powers stayed hidden in each of his muscle fibers, and it was not easy to detect them unless he used his spirit power. It was unknown why his right arm also became so abnormally heavy that he could hardly move it. Meanwhile, his left arm was still fine. As soon as he effortlessly swung it up, the mirage appeared right away. After quietly sensing for a while, he frighteningly realized that the weight difference between the left and the right hand was not only 100 times. His face turned pale with fear inside his heart when he bewilderedly and shockingly looked at his right arm. He remembered clearly that before he had been unconscious, 639 muscles on his body had been shaking non-stop. This kind of tremor had spread out all over his body, flooding into his sea of consciousness and his host soul, and then constantly agitated his entire body. In this kind of state, the mystical power and his entire body's profound chi converged together and absorbed into his right hand, fusing with the muscles there to form some kind of peculiar transformation. Currently, when this transformation had ended, his right arm was now overwhelmed with the mighty refined power, which also caused the weight increase and the difficulty in the movements of this arm. After all, was this good or bad? It's not the possessed by the devil state. While Shi Yin was still thinking with his strange face, Yi Zhangfeng suddenly spoke up. Under other people's astonished eyes, he smiled and confirmed, "That is the mutant martial spirit." Everyone's faces changed. The martial spirit's mutation was extremely complicated. Its rate was microscopic, and ordinary people hardly noticed it. Even the people who had experienced it didn't know that they had already undergone the transforming process of the anomalous martial spirit. There had ever been many tales about the martial spirit's mutation, including its mystery or unpredictability. However, no one knew why or how the martial spirit mutated, nor were they able to control this kind of mutation. Normally, the martial spirit's mutation only occurred in a specific phenomenal circumstance. No one possibly knew of this mutation before it actually happened and couldn't stop it while it was happening. After the mutation, the martial spirit transformed irregularly and marvelously. That was the special feature of the mutant martial spirits. The martial spirit's mutation was not something fun to the warriors. The martial spirit's mutation wasn't a good thing to many of them. Let's take the flora martial spirit as an example. Before the mutation, while fighting with other people, one would immediately have an advantage as long as they were in a luxuriant and verdant forest. They could even rely only on the martial spirit to be able to control trees and plants to wrap and squeeze their enemies to death without the use of their forces. However, after the martial spirit mutated, the ability to control plants might disappear, and the fighting strength might also dramatically decrease, except for the remaining ability to foster and nourish trees and plants. A lot of martial spirits were very dangerous before the mutation, but were clearly weakened after the mutation. However, nothing was absolute. There were also some cases where the martial spirits became stronger after the mutation, which enhanced its intimidation. This probability always existed, just much lower than the chances that the martial spirits got weakened. Therefore, everyone's faces remarkably changed when they heard that Shi Yan's martial spirit had just mutated, as they all assumed that was the bad mutation, especially when this kind of martial spirit's mutation had caused Shi Yan's profound chi to have been completely consumed. That made other people more anxious. Although I don't know how this kind of martial spirit's anomaly will develop, I am sure that the mutation has occurred. It's just I still don't know whether it will continue happening or not. Yi Zhangfeng looked at Shi Yin with a complicated face and said, "As this mutation prevents you from gathering the profound chi, it might not give you many chances to be able to break through, and thus, the mutation will probably happen in the bad direction." After hearing what he had said, the three people of Etian Mo's group and Xia Xinyan were even more worried. Everyone knew what it meant when being unable to gather the profound chi. A warrior who couldn't gather the profound chi was not a warrior anymore. Having no profound chi meant having no source of strength. A warrior without profound chi was not different from an ordinary person. That was the fatal strike for a warrior. Xia Shunchuan's and other people's faces dramatically changed with fear while they confusingly looked at Shi Yin. Would a top future master of the Endless Sea become an ordinary person just because of the martial spirit's mutation? Everyone had the same thought. Xia Xinyan was brokenhearted and kept on sighing. Her heart was full of sorrowful innermost feelings, but she didn't know what to say. Shi Yan's face became heavy, and his eyebrows slammed together. He sat down cross-legged without saying a word. After taking a deep breath, Shi Yin held his breath, concentrating his mind to make another attempt in condensing the profound chi. As long as he could condense the profound chi, it meant that the tragic case was not happening. As everyone saw him sitting down, they were all quiet and anxiously waited for the result. Chapter 322. Understanding People's Heart. Chapter 322. Understanding People's Heart. Editor. Shurian was silent while his face looked a little odd. He was still quietly condensing the sky and earth aura without saying a word. The three people of Yi Tianma's group, Yi Zhangfeng, and others had scattered further away from him, surrounding and watching him in silence. A beam of regret and disappointment flickered in the eyes of the four people Yi Zhangfeng, Chao Zhilan, Lin Yiqi, and Xia Shanchuan, as if they were watching Shurian falling into a deep abyss from the god position in the sky. Because of this mutation, he would probably lose his will and hardly break through the next realm. Xia Xinyan's face looked calm, but her heart was actually agitated. She didn't dare to imagine that if Shurian couldn't condense the sky and earth aura, how the situation would be. When he lost his body strength completely and became an ordinary person, she wasn't sure if he could stand it, given his haughtiness. Etianimo, Kaba, and Yimeng were even more anxious. They had served Shurian as their master, betting the future of the demonic Sound Clan on him. If Shurian became an ordinary person, they would be lashed for this. Under the other people's scrutinizing eyes, Shurian closed his eyes, attentively condensing the sky and earth aura. The black head lotus tattoo on his chest started exerting its effect, gathering the sky and earth aura around him, creating a flow of the spiritual aura pouring into his chest. After condensing a little bit and being controlled by his spirit, this flow of aura flowed along the vessels toward the beam of profound chi light on his belly. This beam of profound chi light was the fist-sized tornado-like type. When Shurian sent his spirit into it, he realized that its interior was empty. Not a single profound chi, nor the marvelous ancient profound chi tree remained. Only the nihility existed there. Previously, the first step of the cultivating process was to gather the sky and earth aura, which would be refined and condensed by the tornado on his belly to transform into the feeble profound chi that then poured into the center of the tornado and converged at the beam of profound chi light. However, this time was different. After the sky and earth aura had poured into that tornado, the whirling speed was enhanced rapidly. But after a while, the sky and earth aura which had just poured into the tornado disappeared again, as if it had swirly diffused and gotten out through the pores on the belly instead of being condensed and transformed into the purified profound chi. Shurian was worried but not hopeless. He continued condensing and refining the profound chi. However, the result was still the same. After he had condensed the sky and earth aura and poured them into the tornado, during the spinning time, the tornado threw out all the aura that had just been poured in. As the profound chi was gone, the tornado also slowed down and eventually was motionless like a dead pond. His mood gradually sank into the bottom of the glass as his face became grimaced. When the three people of Yi Tianma's group saw his gloomy face, they were worried if he could endure this fatal shock or not. It seems this martial spirit's anomaly has stopped you from being able to gather the profound chi. If so, you have no profound chi to use. Yi Zhangfeng slightly released a sigh and regretfully said, "Without the profound chi, you cannot be considered a warrior." Such a pity. Chao Zhilan's charming face slightly changed. Her beautiful eyes gazed at Shurian complicatedly for a moment, while she was thinking about not to build up the relationship with Shurian anymore. Due to this mutation, her previous romantic interest in him had been restrained reasonably. Such a regret. Chao Zhilan quietly thought as her picturesque eyebrows knitted tightly. Her mind was considering the relation with Shurian's group. She felt that giving her lifetime happiness in Shurian's hands right now was extremely unwise. Therefore, she decided to leave Shurian, giving up her initial choice. Xia Shenchuan was frustrated. In fact, Chao Zhilan's and his way of thinking were similar. He considered Shurian the future master of the Yang family who could surpass Yang Tian Emperor one day to become the most admirable warrior in the Endless Sea. He had felt that Shurian could help the Xia family regain the top position. Regretfully, the entire plan had been thwarted by the mutation of Shurian's martial spirit. It was no longer practical. However, his intention was different from Chao Zhilan's. He didn't decide to stay away from Shurian. Instead, he wanted to advise and comfort him in the hope of Shurian could pull himself together and wouldn't easily collapse because of this upheaval. "It's all right." Xia Xinyan was still smiling, looking at Shurian and then gently said, "I believe that you will recover." At least, you will still have a chance to start all over again. Shiyan's face was toneless like a rock. However, after hearing Xia Xinyan's words, he felt moved and regained some hope. That's right. At most, he will start everything over again. As he first came here, his body was just ordinary and nothing special anyway. Thanks to the mystery martial spirit's effect, his body had gained a little of profound qi. After a long time of hardships and striving, together with the help of the mystery martial spirit, he had reached the peak Earth realm in just a short time. Presently, although he couldn't gather and condense the profound qi, he was still able to use the forces in his meridians. Moreover, his sea of consciousness had been formed. Many secrets still stayed hidden in his body. His ring still contained and controlled the ice-cold flame, the 10,000-year earth flame, and the 9 serenities soul-devouring flame. All those things could provide him with strength. As long as he used them well, he would not be worse than before. Moreover, nobody was sure that his current incident of impossibly gathering the profound qi could not be cured. He vaguely felt that this incident was just temporary, which might have something related to the mutation of the mystery martial spirit. Waited until the mutation was over, he would restore his normal state. I am okay. I will think about this carefully. I perhaps will have a solution for it. A bunch of thoughts zoomed over in his head, but Shiyan still forced a smile and remained his calm face, then said, I need time? Yeah, I believe you can recover. Xia Xinyan revealed a smile and said, I hope you are lucky enough. Yi Zhangfeng slightly shook his head, looking at Shiyan with strange, meaningful eyes. The transformation caused by the mystery martial spirit's mutation is usually hard to recover. I just want to warn you in advance so that you can be well prepared. Moreover, if you want to find a way to fix this, your right arm should be the key. Shiyan knitted his eyebrows but didn't say anything. Sure you are not in a good mood today. Yi Zhangfeng beamed a faint smile. I don't bother you anymore then. We will take a walk and buy some stuff in the auction of the Spirit Treasure Wonderland on the way. After a short pause, Yi Zhangfeng continued, I want to stay here tonight. Is it possible? Up to you, said Shiyan. Anyway, there are many chambers here. Another 2 more people of you would not make it cramped. You can come if you want. That's good. Yi Zhangfeng nodded, signaling Lin Yiqi, and then both of them left together. Shiyan, can you remove the formation technique in my soul? Chao Zhilan had contemplated for a long while before speaking up with a smile. I can rightfully hand out 5 islands of the Chao family as the ransom for my freedom. Is it okay? While she was talking, her storage ring suddenly flared up and a sheaf of papers emerged from her white hand. Chao Zhilan's smile was still beautiful, but it seemed to lack something. After giving Shiyan those papers, she gently retracted her hand and said, Those 5 islands all have mineral mines and exceptional auras, which are not inferior to those of the Gu family. What do you think? From Chao Zhilan's manners and tone, Shiyan obviously understood why she had that kind of deeds. He secretly smirked within his heart and emotionlessly said, Possible. Chao Zhilan's long eyelashes slightly shivered while she was looking at Shiyan with a complicated visage. After a while, she released a sigh and said, Shiyan, although there is no more chance between you and me, I still have to say that you are the only man who has ever moved me. Regretfully, we are not meant to be together. Sigh. The 3 people of Itima's group bowed, sending their souls into her brain altogether. Just after a short while, as soon as a noise resounded in Chao Zhilan's brain, her soul has been freed from the control of the formation technique. I hope you don't lose your will. Take care of yourself. Chao Zhilan looked at Shiyan, slightly released a sigh, and then glided away. Shiyan sneered with a mocking face, but didn't say anything further. That woman is dangerous indeed, very decisive and straightforward. As soon as she has realized that things are going out of her plan, she immediately cuts off the bond, doesn't let herself get hurt. Xia Shunchuan watched Chao Zhilan's figure, contemplated for a while before speaking. She is very decisive even though she is still young. We cannot disdain this girl in the future. Although I don't like her, I have to admit that she is not easy to deal with. It is normal. Shiyan revealed a smile. As a lady from a big family, she has been fed with many thoughts of fights for power, and thus, she has never felt safe. Her wicked intentions are very big, so she needs to find a leverage force to carry on her dreams. When she has realized that I could not bring her what she wants, she decisively leaves me at once. I really admire her at this point. Why don't you have any discontent? Xia Xinyan was somehow astonished. It is not the first time I have encountered this. I have understood. Shiyan revealed a faint smile and said, not only do I understand the situation, but I also know her very well. Everyone has different purposes. There is nothing wrong with choosing a better man for a better future. As long as she doesn't fish in the troubled water taking advantage of my current situation to do something bad, I have nothing to be discontented. You have actually thought it through, Xia Xingchuan exclaimed. Seeing you optimistic instead of disappointed and dispirited, I am now less worried. I just temporarily cannot gather and condense the profound qi. It doesn't mean that I'm going to die. So, it's useless to be frustrated. Shiyan dragged a smile out of the corner of his mouth. Even when I don't have the profound qi, it is not sure that Nirvana Realm warriors can defeat me. Xia Shengchuan was astonished. Chapter 323, Stay With You. Chapter 323, Stay With You. Editor. Yi Zhangfeng and Lin Yiqi left the manor, heading to the sacred light mountain. They excitedly laughed and talked together on the way, didn't let Shiyan's mutant martial spirit affect their moods. Little Bai, tell me if Shiyan will be discouraged because of the mutation of his martial spirit? Lin Yiqi asked with a regretful tone while watching the sunrise and then shifting her eyes to the sacred light mountain which was immersed in the morning light. That guy's ability is not bad. It is such a pity if he cannot become a warrior just because of that mutant martial spirit. Yi Zhangfeng laughed out loud, dispiritedly waving the feather fan and said sluggishly, Why do you need to care about him? It is not easy to deal with that guy even when he doesn't use his profound qi. What can he do without the profound qi? Lin Yiqi was a little puzzled. Profound qi is the cultivating foundation of all warriors. No profound qi means no forces. Later on, either in fighting or doing something else, without profound qi, it is not good at all. He will not be like that. Yi Zhangfeng remained his normal face, dragging a strange smile out of the corner of his mouth. Although the profound qi in his body had vanished completely, I was still struck away when I was exploring his body. Don't you feel it was bizarre? After hearing what Yi Zhangfeng had said, Lin Yiqi was astonished and suddenly recalled what had happened earlier. When Shiyan had fallen into the strange state, Yi Zhangfeng had explored Shiyan's body, but then had been struck away by the purple light on Shiyan's right arm, breaking through 3 rooms before falling into the garden. If Shiyan had lost his profound qi, what had he relied on to be able to knock Yi Zhangfeng away? The more Lin Yiqi thought, the more suspicious she felt. As a result, she couldn't help but ask, does he have some transformation? He did have a little change. Yi Zhangfeng nodded with a smile and said, he will gradually get familiar with the new transformation of his body. If he understands his body well, he will still be a dangerous man even without the profound qi. Lin Yiqi frighteningly sputtered, almost screamed out loud. Yi Zhangfeng beamed a faint smile and didn't explain anything further. He quickly walked toward the sacred light mountain. In the forest at the northwest of the Sun Island, pine trees formed a peculiar formation which prevented souls from penetrating. Many flags hung up on the pine trees. Those flags had drawings of many toxic insects, which were very lively as if they were moving on the flags for real, giving people a devilish feeling. There was only one simple wooden house situated in the pine forest surrounded by rubble. Those pieces of stone seemed to be arranged accordingly to some kind of formation, forming a mysterious formation altogether. Chilling layers of smoke rolled up from that wooden house. The ambiguous mist of smoke brought along the strange aura which paralyzed people's nerves and dazed people's mind. Anyone who inhaled this aura would instantly be affected, unable to stand firmly. Crack, crack. A strange noise resounded from that wooden house. Inside the house, a person with unknown appearance was enclosed in a gloomy light, sitting on a wooden bed and slightly trembling. The bed also lurched accordingly, creating strange squeaks non-stop. It then collapsed eventually. When the wooden bed collapsed, that person also fell onto the pile of wood chips. The muddy gray light was still wrapping the body as before, which made people hardly see that person's real appearance. Rustling, rustling. As soon as the crisp sound of dried leaves arose from outside the house, the person who had just fallen instantly pulled himself together. The light gradually faded away, and thus, that person's appearance became clearer. That was a middle-aged man in a gray tunic with unfriendly appearance, gray-white beard and hair, an aquiline nose, long and thin eyebrows, thin lips, strict eyes, and dark skin. He gave people a cagey feeling. "Uncle," Dong Fang's voice came up. He slightly called out and stood motionlessly outside the house, didn't dare to step inside. The person inside the house with cold and miasmal eyes gradually stood up, stepped out of the door, attentively looking ahead for a while before slightly snorted and called Dong Fang He. "Come in." Dong Fang He walked inside then said, "I went over there yesterday. That little rascal didn't want to meet me. Even the 3 unidentified God Realm warriors didn't want it either. On the way, I met other people from other forces who also paid them a visit, and they were not an exception as all were rejected. I didn't see anyone who was allowed to step in their accommodation." Seeing the broken bed, Dong Fang He was very frightened, but didn't show it on his face. He calmly told that person what had happened. "I have just come back from there by using the soul." His voice and eyes became sharp and cold. "Those 3 God Realm warriors have exceptional soul accomplishment. I also saw that the little rascal Shi Yin seems to have cultivated until falling into the possessed by the devil state. I was about to penetrate his consciousness to check, but got hindered by the unity of those 3 people, which even harmed my soul. If it weren't that I had put forth all of my spiritual power into my soul, I perhaps wouldn't have gotten out of there alive." Dong Fang's face suddenly changed. He couldn't help but scream in fear. How could it be? That person threw him a cold glance while his entire body emitted a bone-chilling aura. He said, "In this world, the number of people who have the profound understanding of the soul is countless. Those 3 people have impressed me very much in this terms. In the Endless Sea, except for Yang Etian who has unreachable soul level, those 3 people have shocked me as well. I don't know where they are from and why they are willing to support the Yang family." "Uncle, are they the remaining people of Yang Tian Emperor?" Dong Fang He hesitated a little bit before speaking. Although Yang Tian Emperor has been confined in the demon area, everyone knows that the Yang family's ability is unfathomable. Those 3 people might have some relation to Yang Tian Emperor. Yang Tian Emperor. The man gritted his teeth while his face was full of envy, and his eyes were as sharp as an ice saber. It looked like Yang Tian Emperor was his archenemy. 3 years ago, Dong Fang family's people arrived at the Kiara Sea and realized that there was not a sound from high-class warriors or pagans in the Immortal Island of the Yang family. All of them had disappeared. Although the Immortal Island and the Kiara Sea were occupied, the Yang family's forces did not suffer a great loss. If Yang Tian Emperor could escape from the capture, the Yang family could have still been as strong as before. Dong Fang He said with a low voice. "They are absolutely not the remaining people of Yang Tian Emperor." The man revealed a cold smile, snorted then said, with his combative ambitions, "If Yang Tian Emperor has 3 God Realm warriors in his hands, the Hengluo Sea and the Blackwater Sea should soon have become his territory, losing their freedom for a long time already." Dong Fang He was surprised, carefully thought over about it, and then nodded. "The meeting will start tomorrow. I will not expose myself anymore so that those 3 people couldn't detect me." The man was hesitant before instructing Dong Fang He. "You quickly investigate the identity of those 3 people, discover their relationship with the Yang family. Each of the forces here has their own plans and conspiracies. They don't have consensus. So, we should not let our guard down to avoid any mistakes." "Martial Holy Palace doesn't seem to have any actions." Dong Fang He nodded and replied. "Yang Etian should have his own plan. As he has invited us to the Sun Island, he should definitely know the situation of the Sun Island like the back of his hand. Zhongli Dun perhaps will show up at the meeting tomorrow. He will definitely be one of the dominators of the Endless Sea. If Yang Etian let him handle this matter, it means Yang Etian believes in his ability." Dong Fang He was astonished. It is said that ordinary Sky Realm warriors are not his opponents, the man said coldly. Dongfang's face finally changed in fear. Shi Yin took the papers out of the blood vein ring and handed to Etianimo while smiling. You temporarily take care of this stuff? The first sunbeam pierced through the window and the cracks on the stone wall caused by the soul fight at the previous night, lighting up the entire room. As the three people of Etianmo's group didn't like the sunlight, they found the dark corners to stay while wearing gloomy faces. Shi Yin had asked Xia Xingchuan and Xia Xinyan to leave, so there were only Shi Yin and the three leaders of the demonic sound clan in the room. Master, what do you mean by saying it? A beam of light glimmered in Etianmo's eyes while his face was a little unhappy. He didn't lift his hands to receive the papers. After chuckling to himself, Shi Yin kept pushing the papers toward Etianimo and said, "These papers are the ownership proof of some big islands in the seas. However, the main forces that have handed them to me might not comply with the covenants. Once the demon dweller's peril is solved, it is not sure that they will rest on their laurels. However, when the demon dweller's threat is still there, they will temporarily be patient, didn't dare to be rebellious." Etianimo kept silent without uttering a word. I know your tribe has just arrived at the Endless Sea, and you are still not familiar with the Grace Mainland. I also know that the demonic sound clan needs precious and rare materials for your cultivation. Especially the spiritual pellets and the icy stones are essentially important to your cultivation base. Shi Yin talked to them naturally. You can seize the time to send your men to these islands and harvest the necessary things, preparing for the future. The three people of Etianmo's group still didn't open their mouths, while their faces were getting more complicated. I originally wanted to take advantage of the major chaos in the Endless Sea to help you guys obtain enough resources before your return. Currently, the number of the islands in my hands is not many, but it's still better than nothing. You should quickly gather more valuable things on these islands, and then prepare to leave this area. Before your soul scatters and perishes, you are still our master. After keeping silent for a long while, Etianimo then received those papers and stressed each word. Even if we have to leave, we will leave with you. If you don't go, we will also stay with you. Yiming and Kaba immediately nodded. Chapter 324, The Strong Right Arm. Chapter 324, The Strong Right Arm. Great Lady. 3 Sky Realm warriors were standing in a chamber, respectfully conducting ceremony toward Chao Zhilan. This chamber situated right at the foot of the sacred light mountain in a business quarter. This area was very bustling and animated with boisterous voices and many warriors from different places of the Endless Sea gathering here to find treasures they had desired. There was a small road at a hidden corner of the business quarter leading to a hatch where a path connected with this secret chamber under the ground. Those 3 Sky Realm warriors looked like 3 brothers, wearing the same coarse garments. Standing solemnly in the chamber, they looked like 3 imposing and intimidating mountains, emitting heavy auras. Ordinary warriors even found it hard to breathe when facing them. Those 3 people just had normal appearances, so if they mingled in the crowd, no one would ever notice them. Those 3 people were the protectors of the Chao family, who were seldom showed up in front of strangers and devoted in helping the Chao family do some dubious missions. You are all here. That's good. Chao Zhilan was comfortably sitting on a chair. A halo flashed over her face, which could mesmerize other people. She knitted her eyebrows. Tell me about the latest situation of the family. The 3 warriors of the Chao family nodded, bent down, and started reporting on everything about the Chao family in recent years. Chao Zhilan slightly closed her eyes while listening carefully. Waiting until those 3 people had finished, she then nodded. Everything is good. Nothing is abnormal. So, the plan seems to be unchanged? The 3 of them all nodded with the respectful manners. This attitude truly came from inside their hearts, not just because of Chao Zhilan's status. The 3 of you come here to protect me, or to attend the meeting on the Sun Island as well? Chao Zhilan emotionlessly asked with moderate speed. The main purpose is to accompany you back home. One of those 3 people bent down close to the ground, respectfully said, the Hengluo Sea is not safe anymore. Our master's intention is that we should temporarily not involve in the Hengluo Sea's matters. As we come here to see you, we also want to check how many forces are gathering here for the meeting on the same occasion. We actually don't want to join it. Chao Zhilan gently nodded, seemed to know about this in advance. We have heard that Great Lady has been confined. Do you need us to go there? Another man stepped forward to ask for her instructions, while a cold beam of light glinted in his eyes. No need, Chao Zhilan coldly said. Great Lady, we have heard that you and the little rascal Shi Yin have seemingly had conflicts in the hot spring. Mangu has also had to show himself out and got defeated, suffering serious injuries. That man considered a little more carefully, then bent down even lower. Great Lady, you have never laid your eyes on anyone. Do you really want to involve in the relationship with that guy? Chao Zhilan was silent, whining inside her heart. She contemplated for a while before standing up, shaking her head, and speaking up indifferently. In fact, I initially had that intention. However, I don't know what to think now. The mutation has happened to his martial spirits. Perhaps he will not be able to gather the profound qi for the rest of his life. His cultivation base has probably reached its limit. The other three people were astonished, then silently nodded, assuming that what Chao Zhilan had done was obviously right. Sigh. Chao Zhilan was a little melancholy. If it weren't because he could not gather his profound qi anymore, perhaps I would sincerely follow him. This man is indeed outstanding. If he could have maintained his strength as before, he would have had a big advancement and surpassed Zhong Li Dun, becoming the most brilliant person in the Endless Sea. A beam of light suddenly glinted in the eyes of the three protectors of the Chao family while they showed their disbelieving manners. I know how dangerous Zhong Li Dun is. He has the Nirvana realm cultivation base, the well-known abstruse soul, as well as many martial techniques. Thus, he is always complimented as once-in-a-lifetime genius. Chao Zhilan slightly harumphed and continued, however, Shi Yin is not much inferior to him. Even my spirit god martial spirit couldn't check how many secrets he has. This man brings me a mysterious feeling. If it weren't for the mutant martial spirit, I would have longed for the day that he and Zhong Li Dun fight against each other. Such a pity, then. The three protectors of the Chao family nodded. It's a pity indeed. Chao Zhilan blushed with embarrassment when suddenly thinking about how she had given him her first kiss on her own initiative. She thus kept silent without saying anything further. As Shi Yin has no value anymore, we perhaps should skip him and contact directly with the guys following him, the other person said. Very difficult? Chao Zhilan thought for a while before speaking. Considering the situation now, I feel that convincing those three pagans is not a simple matter. On the Snow Dragon Island, there are another terrifying God Realm pagan warriors as well. The three protectors of the Chao family looked odd, screaming at the same time. 5 God Realm warriors? Chao Zhilan nodded with a strained smile. Yes, 5 God Realm warriors. This force is terrifyingly powerful. If it isn't so, I wouldn't have boldly stayed there for such a long time like that. Sigh, regretfully, he can't gather the profound qi. Maybe those pagans are also about to leave him. Do we need to send our men straight to the Snow Dragon Island to see the other 2 people? Yeah, we can try. I am not sure if we will succeed or not, but at least we should show them the Chao family's good intentions. I think if Shi Yin just dies in silence, it will be easier for us to contact with those pagans. Chao Zhilan's eyes glimmered with a cold beam of light, stonily looking at the protector who had just spoken up. You better forget what you have just said. Not to mention the relation between Shi Yin and that pagan group. Yang Tian Emperor has not been killed just yet. So if Shi Yin is dead in your hands, you think how many people can you hide it from? You think you are a God Realm warrior? That protector's face dramatically changed while he obediently nodded non-stop, didn't dare to say another word. Don't think about killing Shi Yin. Don't bring troubles to the Chao family anymore. Understand? Chao Shilan snorted coldly. The 3 protectors quickly nodded, clearly showing that they were very scared of her. In another secret stone chamber, Shi Yin was sitting cross-legged on the ground with a gloomy face, knitting his eyebrows while looking at his right arm and thinking dolefully. He placed his right arm on a rock surface, looking at his rough arm, didn't recognize anything different from before. Afterward, when he closed his eyes, strange purple rays suddenly appeared from his eyes. After focusing his mind, he realized that those purple rays also stayed hidden in his muscles. He was thinking about the current situation where his right arm had become as rigid as iron and stone and was not different from being sculptured by a knife. This gave people an impetuous feeling. Mutant martial spirit, Yin frowned and mumbled to himself. It should be because of that petrification martial spirit. But how come this kind of mutation has happened? Why has it consumed all of my profound chi? He sat in the stone chamber and watched his body's transformation for half a day with many unanswered questions. He somehow could be certain that the transformation of his body happened due to the petrification martial spirit. He knew the evolvement process of the petrification martial spirit included 4 phases, and every phase had a different shade from each other. At the first phase, the skin had the white-gray hue, and then it would turn into the light brown at the second phase and green-yellow at the third phase. At the last phase, the skin would be purple. Besides the fact that different phases had different shades, the strength in each phase was also various. According to what he had known, only when the cultivation base entered the sky realm could the petrification martial spirit reach the 4th phase where the skin would turn to be purple. Of course, that process happened to the ordinary warriors only. Since Yan's body had the support of the mystery martial spirit's power, his martial spirit could directly enter the 4th phase without requiring his cultivation base to reach the demanded realm. Presently, the petrification martial spirit was still in the 3rd phase. If he triggered his mind, urging the petrification martial spirit, most of the skin on his body would turn into green-yellow. However, the color of his right hand remained unchanged, which was its normal skin color. However, with a closer look, people could see a flow of purple light vaguely emerged from his right arm. From that phenomenon, he guessed the petrification martial spirit was about to enter the 4th phase. Right now, the Master Shurjian of the Shur family only had the Nirvana realm cultivation base, and thus, the petrification martial spirit was only in the 3rd phase. Until now, nobody in the Shur family had ever broken through the sky realm, so no one had cultivated the petrification martial spirit to the 4th phase. Nothing about this 4th phase had been mentioned or described in Shuryan's memory, making him uncertain whether the current transformation of his body was normal or not, given that the petrification martial spirit was about to enter the 4th phase. His entire body had fossilized, being covered by a layer of green-yellow light. It was now stony and unbreakable. Meanwhile, although his right arm remained its original color, it became extremely heavy. It was already hard for him to move his right arm, and thus, if he had to engage in a fight now, this arm would definitely be troublesome for him, even causing his unsteady move. The reason was due to the heaviness of this arm. The weight difference between the left arm and right arm was more than 100 times. One of them was as light as nothing while the other one was as heavy as a mountain. The imbalance disturbed him very much. Dang it! Shuryan used his strength to lift his right arm as high as possible. Without the help of the profound chi, this move was extremely slow. Until he could lift it over his head, sweat had already beaded on his forehead, and his back had also soaked in sweat. It looked like as if he had to lift a big mountain. Shuryan understood that the reason he had been able to raise this arm over his head was that his body had gone through the extremely arduous cultivation, and thus his body strength was much mightier than other ordinary warriors. Otherwise, it was unlikely to lift this arm up like this. Dang it! He got crazy and cursed. His right arm suddenly dropped. His fist was like a big club, pounding heavily on the rock surface. The arm and the fist effortlessly dropped as quickly as lightning, bringing along the terrifying flow of purple light. Boom! The hard green rock now became a piece of tofu which had utterly been smashed. He didn't encounter any difficulties in doing so. His right arm was like an undefeatable drill that pierced through the green rock. At the same time, a peculiar, powerful force was transmitted, dragging the tremor of his body. This tremor was very familiar. Shuryan's face changed after he had realized this vibration. He felt his right arm seemed to be about to explode. A crazy, terrifying power from his body was spreading to his arm, making him unable to stand it. Boom, boom. The explosive sounds suddenly reverberated from the ground under Shiyan's feet, giving people a terrible feeling. Shiyan was frightened while his dazed eyes gazed at his feet, seeing the ground rippling like sea waves. In the booming sounds, the green stone ground under his feet was heaving non-stop as if it was being destroyed by a major earthquake which had a magnitude of 7 or 8. The broken green stones turned into chalky putty that scattered everywhere. The noise of explosions still kept coming up while the chamber looked as if it was being devastated by the earthquake. The stone chamber was gradually falling into pieces, green stones scattered everywhere. After a while, Shiyan was besieged in an area of 30 square meters by the broken rubble. He was wearing an eccentric face, looking at the big grave, and then his right arm while a strange beam of light flashed up in his eyes.
Master.
The 3 people of Etienne's group appeared at his side like ghosts, looking at the grave with complicated faces. This is, Xia Xingchuan and Xia Xinyan also arrived. Looking at the ruined chamber, they showed a suspicious look on their faces. You did it? Xia Xingchuan hesitated a little bit before glancing at Etienne. Etienne shook his head. So, who did this then? Xia Xingchuan raised his head, shifting his look to Yimeng and Kaba and asked again, You too? Yimeng and Kaba were bewildered, constantly shaking their heads. Thus, everyone turned their heads around, looking at Shiyan with strange eyes, together with the astonished, unbelievable look on their faces. I don't know what has happened either. Under the scrutinizing eyes of other people, Shiyan shook his head, strangely looking at his right arm and mumbling. The mutant martial spirit not only prevents me from gathering the profound chi, but also makes me become like this. Chapter 325. Regain the Trust. Chapter 325. Regain the Trust. Yi Zhangfeng and Lin Yiqi came back to the manor at dusk. Both of them were startled seeing the big crater. The crater was 7 or 8 meters deep with rubble heaping up together. Everything had clearly been smashed into ashes by some force. Yi Zhangfeng squinted, assuming and considering the possibility. It seems that a fight has just occurred in this place. According to the current scene, it is certainly the masterpiece which has been caused by a Nirvana realm warrior with his secret treasure. After having a quick glance, Lin Yiqi was a little disappointed. If I have known about this, I would have stayed here instead of having gone to that boring auction of the Spirit Treasure Wonderland. Nothing there could attract me. Yi Zhangfeng dragged a smile out of the corner of his mouth, shaking his head. I don't think a Nirvana realm warrior has caused this crater. According to my guess, this crater should be created by that guy Shiyan. Unexpectedly, things already became like this just after one day. What? Lin Yiqi kicked the gravel on the ground, frowned, and said with disbelieving tone, Not sure. Can't he gather the profound chi? You have said that his right arm has strength, but given the situation where he cannot use his profound chi and just relies on his right arm's strength, how can he make such a terrible destruction like this? You have underestimated him, Yi Zhangfeng said with a serious face. He was much more dangerous than you think. This guy is bizarre. The aura on his body is also a little peculiar. Even though he temporarily cannot gather the profound chi, it is still not easy for ordinary people to deal with him. Lin Yiqi was still doubtful. Yi Zhangfeng walked to Shiyan's chamber without saying anything further. There were only Shiyan and the 3 people of Etienne's group in the room, discussing something with each other in a low voice. After Yi Zhangfeng and Lin Yiqi had entered, Shiyan immediately stopped the discussion with the other 3 people, raised his head looking at Yi Zhangfeng, then spoke up. How was the auction? Don't mention it. Yi Zhangfeng released a disappointed sigh. At first, I have had some respect toward this Spirit Treasure Wonderland, thinking that they could have displayed some real precious treasures. However, nothing was valuable there. It is such a waste of my mind to have been worried and prepared money for this. It was boring. Lin Yiqi pouted her mesmerized red lips. Maybe because your demands are too high, everything then becomes ordinary in your eyes. Something which is valuable in others' eyes may have no value in your eyes. Yi Zhangfeng had the heaven flame, and Lin Yiqi possessed the sacred level treasure. As both of them came from the dark magnetic noxious mist, They were obviously richer than most of the young successors in the Endless Sea. Their master should be even wealthier than them, and thus, the eyes of his disciples were apparently different from other people's, and their demands were extremely high. Therefore, they hadn't found the treasures that the Spirit Treasure Wonderland had displayed interesting and valuable. Yi Zhangfeng seemed to understand the reason. He slightly grinned, nodded and said, "It should probably be that reason. This manor has many vacancies. You can freely choose one among them. I can't help you with this." Shi Yin contemplated for a while before speaking to Yi Zhangfeng. "As to our cooperation, you should think about it more carefully. With my current situation, I am not much of help." Yi Zhangfeng was a little bit surprised, then comfortably laughed. "Are you saying that your heaven flame is currently not the same as before because of your inability to gather the profound qi?" Shi Yin nodded. "It's all right." Yi Zhangfeng looked very easygoing without any hesitation. "I don't think so, anyway. If an ordinary person cannot gather the profound qi, they might have a lot of difficulties in controlling the heaven flame. You are different, though. Even if you cannot gather the profound qi forever, I think you still can control the heaven flame easily." Lin Yaqi's eyes suddenly brightened up. The three people of Yi Tianma's group were a little puzzled. Shi Yin knitted his eyebrows but didn't say anything. "Because the relationship between you and the heaven flame is not normal," Yi Zhangfeng continued with a stern face. "The way I control my heaven flame is that I temporarily remove its consciousness and forcefully occupy it. When I control it, I always have to be cautious with the possibility of its counterattack. Once my force cannot tyrannize over it, it will regain its consciousness and incinerate me into ashes. The saying fire is a good servant but a bad master can be applied in my case." Shi Yin quietly nodded, as he knew the method of controlling the heaven flame of the corpse's god sect is the same with the one of Yi Zhangfeng. "You are different, though." Yi Zhangfeng revealed a faint smile. "Although I don't understand how you can live with the heaven flame peacefully, the coadjutant relation between you and the heaven flame is something that I have desired. You might not be able to exert the heaven flame's power at most, but you will never have to worry that it will backfire on you. Even though you have no more profound qi, you still can use the heaven flame." After a short pause, Yi Zhangfeng continued, "The most important thing is the communication means between you and the heaven flame. The heaven flame can still maintain its consciousness and its ability to evolve naturally, which I have desired. If it is possible, I hope that the jail refined true flame and I can form the same relationship." Yi Zhangfeng was very straightforward, didn't hide anything nor hesitated. Shi Yin was astonished for a while before gently nodding his head. "That's right. The relationship between the heaven flame and me is exactly like what you have just said. The matter of your profound qi doesn't seem to affect you badly. That's good." Yi Zhangfeng hesitated a little bit before continuing. "It's not sure that your martial spirit has a bad mutation. I believe that you will overcome the inability to gather the profound qi. This kind of matter always exists during the mutation, and it will automatically disappear when the mutation is over." Shi Yin was moved. The people of Yi Tianma's group got excited. "Why didn't you say it before?" Shi Yin grunted and unhappily asked. "I forgot." Yi Zhangfeng burst into laughter, and then shifted his eyes toward Lin Yachi, winking at her. He walked straight out of the room without waiting for Shi Yin to utter any more word. His voice echoed, "All right, you should prepare for the meeting tomorrow. With your current situation, climbing the sacred light mountain is not easy." Shi Yin was astonished. "Master, you should rest," he said while a smiling sign appeared in Yi Tianma's eyes. "We know that you will definitely recover. With your current state, you will enter a whole new world once your profound qi is restored." Yimeng and Kaba nodded together. Shi Yin laughed out loud. "I hope so." Previously, Shi Yin and the three people of Yi Tianma's group had been discussing the matter of the Snow Dragon Island. Given the situation of losing all the profound qi, he was a little down. Hence, he had instructed Yi Tianma's group that they should not engender a feud with other people, and they should immediately leave after seizing the resources on the islands that were in their hands right now. However, the three people of Yi Tianma's group hadn't agreed with him. Instead, they had insisted on staying with him, which had been out of his expectation. He hadn't expected that the three leaders of the demonic Sound Clan could have such respect for him. Shurian's faith had been not too strong before. However, after having listened to Yi Zhangfeng's explanation, he had gradually been enlightened. At this time, he had already regained his belief and no longer had any intention of asking Yi Tianma's group to leave him. When the sun descended behind the mountain, Shurian discussed a little bit more with the 3 people of Yi Tianma's group before asking them to go back to rest. He then sat cross-legged alone in the room. His mind gradually blended with his body, and his soul started spreading out, slowly entering his right arm and concentrating all his consciousness into this arm. Shurian's muscle fibers seemed to be magnified. His consciousness was moving between those sturdy muscle fibers, realizing as if it was entering a sea of energy. That was a new energy, formed by the fusion of the profound qi and the mysterious energy. This kind of energy stayed inside his arm, replenishing it with vitality and vigorousness. Would the 4th phase of the petrification martial spirit transform the entire body? Shurian raised up his hope. Inside a human body, there were total 639 muscles which were constituted by 60 millions of muscle fibers, among of which, the longest muscle fiber was 60 centimeters, and the shortest one was about 1 millimeter only. The heaviest muscle fiber was 200 grams, and the lightest one was only a few grams. For ordinary people, the muscles occupied around 35 to 40%, and the length of the total blood veins was around 100,000 kilometers. A lot of memories outflowed from his mind. These memories belonged to the body constitution subject of the other world. In that other world, he was very fond of intense movements, and thus, his body was much stronger than that of an ordinary one. He had also carried on a profound study of human body's muscles and attended several courses related to this subject. These memories had been deep-rooted, but now massively flowed out all of a sudden. With only one hand that was going through the transformation, he had almost consumed all of his profound qi and the mysterious fused energy. So, if the entire body had to undergo the transformation, how terrifying that unknown power would be. Just one normal fist of his right hand had already made a 30-meter crater. So, if his entire body had the transformation, and that transformation was perfectly successful, what level would the power in his body possibly reach? Shurian squinted. His eyes were full of vitality. Chapter 326, Heading to the Mountain Peak. Chapter 326, Heading to the Mountain Peak. In the morning of the next day, many warriors had already gathered at the foot of the sacred light mountain, looking up toward the peak of the mountain and quietly giving compliments. The first beam of sunlight shining behind the sacred light mountain was magnified after traveling across the mountain. Only one gleam of light was enough to dazzle people's eyes. That ray of light seemed to have been reflected many times by the sacred light mountain, and thus, that blinding sunlight had already covered the mountain peak in just a short time. Many warriors at the foot of the mountain raised their heads looking up, seeing the blazing yellow light have already engulfed the entire sacred light mountain. The sacred light mountain looked as if it was gold-plated under the sun, which was extremely dazzling. Until the sun had gradually raised up, countless light rays shined, turning the sacred light mountain into a golden mountain with shining yellow halo that gave people a feeling of admiration and respect. The sacred light mountain emitted an impetuous aura and wallowed in the sunlight like the majestic mountain of gods. There was an imposing castle looked as if it was floating amid white clouds on the peak of the mountain. The scene was like a dream fairyland, which got a lot of compliments, whispers, and comments from many warriors who couldn't help but ask for their predecessors' permission to visit the sacred light mountain's peak. At the foot of the mountain, Li Fu and other 10 disciples of 3 gods sect were cautiously watching over a small road in the yellow hue. The entire sacred light mountain was immersed in the sunlight, emitted the tremendous aura that terrified other people. Disciples of 3 gods sect were taking strict guard, preventing other people from getting inside. Li Fu was standing at the beginning section of the small road, waiting in silence. After a short while, 2 master leaders of the Endless Sea, Yu Qin and Gu Xiao, quietly appeared, heading to Li Fu together. Those who were standing at the foot of the mountain were terrified. Many of them had never seen these 2 leaders of the 2 big forces, so they frighteningly cast furtive glances at them but couldn't stand passionately staring at Gu Linglong and Chu Yanqing with excited faces. Qin and Gu Xiao slowly walked over in front of Li Fu, then handed him 2 golden invitation cards. Li Fu respectfully bent down, receiving the 2 invitation cards and inviting them to go up to the mountain peak. Qin and Gu Xiao gently nodded, then moderately walked toward the mountain. They both knew that the rule here didn't allow them to fly, so they just gently stepped forward but with breakneck speed. Gu Linglong and Chu Yanqing wanted to enter, but Li Fu stopped them. "I'm sorry, but this is a special case. Only those who have golden invitation cards are permitted to enter, and plus, each invitation is only for 1 person." Li Fu embarrassedly smiled, stretching his arms to impede the 2 of them and shaking his head. This time, it is weird. That's right. It seems to be very strict this time. None of the irrelevant people are allowed to walk in. This meeting seems to be very important. Unqualified people are not authorized to get in. Yes. Everyone was boisterously discussing, curiously looking up toward the mountain peak with dazed faces. In the clamorous noise, Gu Linglong's and Chu Yanqing's faces didn't look good. However, facing Li Fu's tactful rejection, they couldn't do anything but stopped at the foot of the mountain, looking ahead. The surrounding crowd quickly parted to give way while the noise seemed to cool down. The crowd felt comfortable and elated while being immersed in the warm sunlight. Suddenly, a flow of cold air came in, zooming over everyone's backs. A bizarre person in a black tunic and a grim mask was quietly approaching from afar. In Hai and the other disciples of Corpse's God sect were bending and walking behind him with gloomy faces and emotionless eyes like the dead. A flow of miasmal aura that could intimidate people was covering the entire area. Leading ahead was the hierarchy of Corpse's God sect, whose eyes were as peculiar as the dancing bonfires. All of the warriors there unconsciously bowed their heads, didn't dare to look straight into his eyes whenever his eyes scanned over them. Some of them even couldn't stand but take a few steps backward in panic. Corpse's God sect was the most devilish and mysterious sect in the Endless Sea. They made friends with corpses all day long, and thus obviously had the icy miasmal aura that scared other people out of their wits. Wherever the Corpse's God sect's members appeared, they had never encountered any obstacles on their way, as people automatically gave way to them. Even Li Fu's face changed a little bit, didn't look well. Qingming quietly walked forward with his fond fire eyes, then took out the golden invitation card and threw it to Li Fu. Li Fu caught the invitation card and conducted the inviting gesture. However, Qingming didn't hurriedly get in. Instead, he stopped, standing motionlessly right on the spot. Everyone was stunned, looking at him with the doubtful look without knowing whom he was waiting for. Not long after that, Shiyan, together with the 3 people of Etienma's group, appeared from afar, walking toward the foot of the mountain. As soon as Shiyan had arrived, plenty of people slightly screamed in admiration as they had witnessed the fight between Shiyan and Mangu and understood how mighty Shiyan was. They immediately turned to the ones who hadn't seen that fight and told them the story. The hearts of many beautiful girls had been stirred after having seen Shiryan's sturdy body as well as his cold and firm momentum. Their eyes rippled while their souls kept vibrating non-stop, creating some kind of miraculous emotions. Gu Linglong and Chu Yanqing were standing on the way in. They knitted their eyebrows as soon as they saw Shiyan approaching, but they then instantly felt dispirited when seeing the surrounding people's admiring eyes. Gu Linglong's eyes were flooded with resentment as she gritted her teeth, bit her lips, and couldn't help but snort. Chu Yanqing lamented in her heart with complicated eyes, which now tightly fixed on Shiyan, glinting with strange beams of light. Nobody knew what she was thinking. Shiyan walked over in front of Li Fu, threw an astonished glance at Qingming of Corpse's God sect, and then nodded toward him with a smile. "Let's go together?" Qingming gently invited with a voice that was indescribably miasmal, like a poisonous snake sticking out its tongue, very unpleasant to others' ears. A lot of people couldn't help but scream, bewilderedly looking at Shiyan then Qingming. They would never understand why the hierarchy of Corpse's God sect had been waiting for a brat like Shiyan. In their mind, the person whom Qingming had been waiting for should be the lords of powerful forces like Yuqin and Gu Xiao. Although everyone knew that Shurian was the member of the Yang family, he was still just a descendant of emperor. So why Qingming had to be humble waiting for him? Everyone was quietly discussing but still couldn't find any reasonable explanation for this. All right. Under astonished eyes of other people, Shurian revealed a smile, took out the golden invitation card, and handed it to Li Fu. Again, people were more curious about Shurian as they saw he was presenting the invitation card. They wondered why Tang Yuannan had directly sent him the invitation card. Young Master Yin, please. Li Fu bent down, revealing a flattering smile. Young Master Yin, you might not have known about the three god sects rule. Let me tell you a little bit. The Sacred Light Mountain has the formation technique that forbids flying, which means you can only walk. Please be noticed. Shurian faintly smiled and nodded gently. He then quickly passed Li Fu, gliding effortlessly up to the mountain, which greatly surprised other people. Qingming's eyes flared up a beam of light as he seemed to be a little suspicious. He thus stopped at the entrance for a few seconds, turning his head around looking at the three people of Yi Tianma's group from a distance. The three of them were mingling in the crowd, who immediately stepped far away from them due to the icy aura from their bodies. Nobody dared to stand close to them in the range of 10 meters, which was extremely weird. Under Qingming's scrutinizing look, the three of them sat down while their eyes became dark and cold. They then closed their eyes, meditating. Qingming was a little startled while a suspicion grew bigger in his heart. He gently shook his head, doubtfully looking toward Shurian's back ahead, and then followed Shurian heading to the Sacred Light Mountain after a little hesitance. Shurian leisurely walked forward, heading to the mountain peak with a stony face. Shurian's right arm weighed around 15,000 kilograms. Without the profound qi, it was as if he was walking and carrying along a big mountain, preventing him from comfortably moving. The anomaly of the arm made Shurian happy and worried at the same time. He felt happy because the hidden forces in this arm actively agitated him. Meanwhile, he was worried because this mutant arm significantly influenced the balance of his body. With the right arm heavily hanging on the right side, small sound always came up every time his right leg landed. On the way to the Sacred Light Mountain, he had noticed it and repeatedly tried different ways to avoid revealing this strange peculiarity. Very weird. Qingming's feeble voice came up from behind Shurian. Shurian knitted his eyebrows, turned his head looking at Qingming's flickering eyes and asked, "What is weird?" "I feel strange because the profound qi in your body seems to have totally drained. Nothing remains," Qingming said with a cold and dreary voice. "Even if you are exhausted after fighting with someone, you can still gather the sky and earth aura to condense into profound qi after a short time later. Your body's current situation truly surprises me. My martial spirit has encountered some problems, and thus it has hardly gathered profound qi. It is probably not easy to solve this matter." Shurian beamed a cold smile while his bright, sharp eyes stared at Qingming, then asked, "Are you satisfied with this answer?" Qingming's eyes glinted with the strange light. The dancing flame inside them became fierce as if it could jump out at any time. "Be careful with him. The heaven flame inside his body is vibrating strongly. He might have a murderous intention." The ice-cold flame inside the blood vein ring sent out a message to Shurian. Shurian was neglectful. His eyes became glacial. "You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.